Yes.
The lead Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1215 of the War News stream. Today, Iran has made a big mistake. They've attacked U.S. bases across the Middle East. Also, we've seen U.S. Air Force deploy fighter jets to intercept missiles across the region, and the U.S. forces are currently sheltered in base bunkers right now as there is an ongoing missile attack across the Middle East on U.S. assets. This is a very big event right here and a huge escalation, and it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past few moments of breaking news that we've been able to hear as the Islamic Republic of Iran has now begun a military operation to target and attempt to hit U.S. bases throughout the Middle East, with air raid sirens sounding in Kuwait, Iraq, Qatar, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, and Syria at the moment, as it appears that all U.S. bases within the region may be under an attack by the Islamic Republic of Iran. We have been able to see video and picture evidence from the skies of Qatar showing the Iranian ballistic missiles inbound towards the base of Al-Udeid airbase within the area of the country of Qatar, and we do have footage and information showing that some interceptions have been made, and there have also been reports of possible ground impacts from some of these missiles that may have not been shot down by U.S. air defense within the area. We were able to see the footage, however, of the incoming Iranian ballistic missiles, which we'll be showing you all right here. We see all the Iranian ballistic missiles being fired into the area of the Al-Udeid air base, or largely Qatar in general, as we are seeing that the United States Air Defense Forces are conducting air interceptions of the incoming Iranian ballistic missiles and attempting to take them down before they can hit their targets.
Also, Enforcer, we've got some breaking news right this minute, right now. Right now, we are hearing the air raid sirens are going off in the Bahrain capital of Manama, and right now we're hearing that the citizens in Bahrain are being urged to stay calm, head to the nearest safe place, and hide immediately. Meanwhile, we're hearing that U.S. fighter jets are being rapidly deployed from Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia to go intercept these missiles, and it sounds like Bahrain is currently under an attack of some sort, or it's a precaution of sorts. But right now, it appears to be there are video of the air raid sirens going off in Bahrain right now. That's about 2 or 3 posts down on our Twitter page.
And let's take a look at this footage as we are able to hear the air raid sirens inside of Bahrain. From what we understand, air raid sirens are currently sounding over the entirety of the Qatari Emirate, and it does appear that the small city-state nation on the island at Bahrain is under attack at the moment. We will be putting that down as credible information that is coming out of Bahrain. So, really quickly, let me make sure to put this down on the map, as we are hearing that U.S. forces are also under attack within the area of Bahrain. We also have been able to hear as well that it appears that once again the skies over Doha in Qatar have clearly shown the presence of Iranian ballistic missiles flying over the airspace of the city, and we can see those Iranian missiles inbound in this picture or video right here, which we'll be getting to y'all in just a moment. And so here is the video showing the missiles coming in over the city of Doha in Qatar over the horizon from the Islamic Republic of Iran. That's the end of that clip right there, but once again showing us the Iranian missiles that have been fired at U.S. forces just minutes ago by the Islamic Republic of Iran targeting U.S. bases throughout the region. We have been able to hear the Qatari authorities have stated that there's no casualties or damage during the attack, but that does not speak for the U.S. Department of Defense and our air bases within the area, as the U.S. Department of Defense will most likely be making a separate statement as to the quality or the existence of our service members and their well-being within the region. But we do have additional video and picture evidence coming out at this moment of the ongoing developing situation across the entirety of the Middle East.
Okay, so right now we're getting more footage out of Doha in Qatar. We are seeing here apparently footage showing some of the debris that fell down. So even though there were no direct impacts being reported in Qatar, which is where we house our CENTCOM base, it looks like there was some debris that fell down. It looks like the I think it was the PAC-3 or the Patriot system took down pretty much everything that came its way. So it did a really good job, of course, at taking all these targets down, and it looks like they're good, but there was falling debris. So let's take a look.
And we could actually see the falling debris as the missiles were still incoming into the region, and the U.S. air defenses were still engaging the incoming Iranian missiles that had been fired. According to information that we have at the moment, we actually were able to hear that the operation is apparently named Fatah's Blessing by the Islamic Republic of Iran, and it does appear that all missile operations that are currently being conducted against U.S. forces, bases, and assets throughout the entirety of the Middle East is a part of Operation Fatah Blessing, at least according to the official statement of the Iranian government. We were able to see just minutes before that reports were coming out that missile launchers or transport erector launchers were moving into position, but we have breaking news coming out at this moment. Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so right now we're getting some very, very big breaking news. This is, in fact, a very big story right now. Qatar, which is the country which was just attacked by the Iranian missiles, and the attack was presumably on the American base that's based there in Qatar. It sounds like Qatar is now saying that it reserves the right to respond after the Iranian attack. They're calling it a blatant attack, and that their sovereignty has been threatened by the Iranian country. So it looks like Qatar is taking this extremely seriously, and even though everything was shot down, it looks like Qatar might be considering a counterattack on the Iranians right this second. So this is escalating rapidly. It sounds like Qatar is not going to simply sit back and just let the U.S. handle it. They are going to also potentially take part in a counterattack on Iran. So this is rapidly getting really out of control right here. So we're hearing that right now.
And we are hearing developments that U.S. aircraft, most likely from multiple air bases throughout Saudi Arabia, have scrambled over the skies of Saudi Arabia and are attempting to conduct future air defense operations in case Fatah's Blessing has multiple waves or multiple stages of the attack that will be conducted against U.S. forces. We have also been able to hear outside of Qatar and Bahrain that there have been sirens that have sounded in Kuwait, and there's also been sirens that have sounded inside of Iraq as well, as we have been able to hear that sirens are sounding in all of these locations, according to First Squawk. The Middle Middle East, including Syria, Iraq, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, the UAE, and Oman, suggesting and showing that any U.S. Forces or assets that are within the region of the Middle East at large are under attack at this current moment. We've also been able to hear that there has been an air alert at the Ain al-Assad airbase inside of Iraq, which is off to the far western region of Iraq inside of the desert, which I can actually show you all here very quickly. This is the Ain al-Assad airbase, as seen in the satellite photography, and this does operate a multinational force out of the airbase, but most importantly, U.S. forces are stationed at this airbase as well, and this airbase has also been stated to currently be under attack. Although we have no video or picture evidence to show that at the moment, we are largely taking that statement as a statement of news, as it does appear that the Islamic Republic of Iran has fired off a significant volley of missiles and other sorts of attacks against U.S. forces throughout the area, which may also be joined by proxy force attacks here in the very near future. But we are able to confirm that the Islamic Republic of Iran has taken official armed action against U.S. forces throughout the entirety of the region, which is once again showing us that the Islamic Republic of Iran has absolutely no intention of backing down and will most likely be facing a significant series of endless U.S. airstrikes here in the near future, as the United States will be responding to this escalation as per the statements of the president prior several days ago. We are watching at this very moment live the Islamic Republic of Iran dig its own grave, as the United States Armed Forces will be responding most likely here quite soon, most likely within the next day or two, as we have been able to hear that the President of the United States will soon be convening or speaking to a National Security Council here within minutes inside of Washington, D.C. We were able to hear that just a short while ago, and we were able to see that on the Office of the White House's timetable at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, the President is to meet with the National Security Team. That meeting is actually happening at this very moment right now, and we do not know the contents of the National Security meeting, but we do know that it's most likely the situation that's happening in the Middle East that is being discussed at the moment. We have also been able to see this statement as well by the President of the Russian Federation about potential Russian involvement in the situation in the Middle East, which appears to also be showing that the President is taking an aggressive stance against the Russian Federation. As the President did state, did I hear former President Medvedev from Russia casually throwing around the N-word, as in nuclear, and saying that he and other countries should supply nuclear warheads to Iran? Did he really say that, or is it just a figment of my imagination? If he did say that, and if confirmed, please let me know immediately. The nuclear word should not be treated so casually. I guess that's why Putin's the boss. By the way, if anyone thinks our hardware was great over the weekend, then far and away the strongest and best equipment we have, 20 years advanced over the pack, is our nuclear submarines. They're the most powerful and lethal weapons ever built, and just launched the 30 Tomahawks, all 30 hit their marks perfectly. So in addition to our great fighter pilots, thank you to the captain and crew of the submarine that conducted the attack against the bases in Iran, largely speaking, to fill in the paraphrasing for the president. Nevertheless, it does appear that at the moment, the president of the United States is taking an aggressive stance and actually casually hinting at the possibility of precision strikes against the Russian Federation if they were to be involved in the conflict, while at the same time, we are also hearing that there have been significant attacks on American targets in Qatar and Iraq at the moment. We have been able to hear that from Israeli officials just a moment ago, and we've also been able to hear that Iran's National Security Council has stated that their attack on Al-Udeid airbase does not threaten the sisterly Qataris, although the Qataris appear to view that differently and are stating that the Islamic Republic of Iran is hostilely attacked the state of Qatar, violating their sovereignty, and that the Qataris reserve the right to respond to the Islamic Republic of Iran and their hostile actions that were just conducted moments ago. We are still getting
I think that actually proves that Iran has not properly calculated the response to this attack, because the fact that the Iranian National Security Council had to come out and say, after Qatar threatened to take action against Iran, they're saying now that the attack on the Al-Udeid airbase, which is in Qatar, does not threaten sisterly Qatar. They probably didn't think that maybe Qatar was going to respond directly, but seriously, like, Qatar is not going to sit back and take that and just simply walk away. It sounds like Qatar is going to try to do something to Iran in some way or another, and honestly, they should. Their sovereignty has been threatened. And even though the Iranians were allegedly targeting a U.S. base, that's Qatar's airspace. So they just had to clear out from all the commercial flights. And Iran needs to be taught a lesson. Like, Iran can't just lob missiles at people and into other people's airspace and risk lives and not have a response to it. The extremist regime in Iran needs to come to an end, because they're clearly threatening the lives of everybody in the region now. And this country is out of control. And at this point, it's time for the Middle East to gang up on this country and take them down, because it's ridiculous at this point that Iran is able to simply exist and basically terrorize the entire region.
It does appear that it is quite a blatant and flagrant act of aggression that the Islamic Republic of Iran is currently conducting. We do have to remember that this is in response to the United States of America conducting an armed strike against the Iranians due to the fact that they were soon to be nuclearizing and developing and using a nuclear weapon. This was the very kind of hot-headed, loose cannon sort of a government or country that was about to actually develop a nuclear weapon if we did not get involved. And their response to being denuclearized, instead of realizing that things could get worse, was to decide that their best course of action was to directly attack U.S. forces throughout the region and to pretty much start the war, whether we wanted to be in it or not. And this is once again showing, I believe, to many people here in the United States and around the world that sometimes we really don't get a choice on what we have to do in response to certain situations. And the Islamic Republic of Iran will have to be dealt with one way or another, as they have just attempted to shed the blood of U.S. service members and our citizens throughout the region in this unsolicited, unprovoked, and hostile attack that has been conducted after the United States had to go in and attempt to denuclearize the Islamic Republic of Iran. And even still, while the Islamic Republic of Iran is acting wildly and dangerously at the moment throughout this area, there is still 400 kilograms of 60% grade uranium that is missing inside the Islamic Republic of Iran that even the Iranians have admitted they have hid. Matthew, what do we got for additional news?
Okay, so right now we're getting a video. This is just to show you how much panic was caused in Qatar by this attack, because Qatar does typically not come under missile attacks. That's obvious at this point. Qatar is not regularly missile attacked, and the people were panicking. They were running through the streets, and this is ridiculous. Iran literally caused this panic across an entire country because they wanted to lash out at the Americans who were taking out their nuclear program that they were going to use to try to kill the Westerners. So this is insane. Let's take a look at the video here and see these people running through the street.
We, of course, hear massive panic as multiple people are running, hopefully to shelter, as the Iranian ballistic missiles were flying in. It is an absolutely crazy thing to see that the Qatari state, which generally is an incredibly neutral and peaceful one, has come under attack by Iranian ballistic missiles just moments ago. It does appear, at least at the moment, that the Qataris are taking this as a grave insult to their national sovereignty and are vowing that they will be responding against the Islamic Republic of Iran here in the very near future. But it does appear that at the moment, U.S. air defenses may have successfully been able to intercept and destroy most incoming Iranian ballistic missiles, but I also want to make it clear, folks, that we do not know of any impacts on U.S. bases. If any have happened, we are hoping that they haven't, or any casualty reports or unfortunate fatalities that may have occurred as a result of this strike. We are hoping that none of that has occurred, and the Department of Defense will be able to say that we intercepted and shot down all incoming ballistic missiles fired by Iran at U.S. bases throughout the region, and that there are absolutely no wounded or killed service members that are on the ground at this moment. We will not be able to confirm that, however, as the U.S. Department of Defense does not usually publish that information until 48 to 72 hours later, and also we will be respecting that as time continues to pass. Nevertheless, it does appear that at the moment, the Islamic Republic of Iran has chosen all-out war. Really quickly, to once again bring y'all through the series of events, the state of Israel was attacked quite viciously by Iranian proxy forces on October 7th of 2023. The Israelis decided to respond by conducting a response attack or a counterattack to the Hamas forces and pushing into the Gaza Strip and attempting to demilitarize the Hamas terrorist forces inside of the Gaza Strip. In response, Hezbollah inside of Lebanon responded and joined in the attacks against the Israelis, attempting to try and throw them off kilter or throw their focus off of trying to attack the Israelis. We were then able to see that the Israelis started to attack and strike at Hezbollah targets, including their main leader, Nasrallah, killing him inside of a bunker in Lebanon. As a response to that, the Islamic Republic of Iran decided that their next best course of action was to conduct a direct retaliatory attack without any provocation against the Israelis for killing Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah. The Iranians fired off this significant missile strike of around 50 to 60 ballistic missiles and several hundred drones at that time, which were mostly all shot down by the coalition, save a few ballistic missiles. Fast forward into the future, beyond the second attack that the Iranians would conduct against the Israelis and the very limited Israeli counterattacks, in the present day, throughout this entire time that all was transpiring, there was word and information that the Islamic Republic of Iran was attempting to develop a nuclear weapon. A new administration under the Trump administration in the United States sent the special envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, to attempt to negotiate with the Iranians over curtailing their nuclear weapons development programs programs and only using their nuclear programs for peaceful purposes. The Islamic Republic of Iran ran circles around our diplomats 5 times in a row, making it absolutely nowhere in diplomatic talks and not attempting to even make any sort of common ground on achieving a denuclearization for the Islamic Republic of Iran, and openly and flagrantly stated that they will continue to work towards nuclear weapons and the United States will not stop them from enriching weapons-grade uranium, openly saying that in all 5 negotiations. Then finally, the United States of America saw that the State of Israel conducted a preemptive attack several weeks ago against the Islamic Republic of Iran, considering that the Islamic Republic of Iran was using their enriched uranium to get close to developing a nuclear weapon. We then saw that the Israelis were able to strike and damage a large amount of nuclear facilities throughout the country, except for the Fordo facility. With that in mind, the United States just days ago conducted an armed forces attack with the U.S. Air Forces against the sites at Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan as well, striking and destroying all 3 of those sites for the large part. Although we've been able to hear that the Fordo damage was quite severe, it did not knock out the entirety of the facility. Now, as a response to all of this, largely the aggressive actions conducted and started by the Islamic Republic of Iran within the region that got the ball rolling back on October 7th of 2023, we now see that the Islamic Republic of Iran is now going to strike and attack U.S. forces throughout the region. This is something that I'd have to say the Islamic Republic of Iran has clearly shown that it is a terrorist state, and if it is not able to get its way of continuing to cause an unlimited reign of terror throughout the region, they will now result to conducting heinous acts of conducting attacks against U.S. forces and service members throughout the region. With that in mind, I'd say that the United States of America should respond to this attack, and that's not even up to my decision. The United States will respond to this attack, and it will be a very unfortunate time for the Islamic Republic of Iran's leadership and government, but a great fortune for the people of Iran and the greater world at large. But still, I do understand, Matthew, that we have more breaking news coming out at this moment.
So yes, right now we do have more breaking news right now. We are hearing that Iran's Supreme National Security Council has announced that they've decimated, this is in their own words, they've decimated the U.S. Al-Udeid airbase in Qatar in response to American attacks on Iranian nuclear facilities. And they claim the number of missiles launched equals the amount of U.S. bombs deployed and assert the strike was carefully targeted to avoid civilian areas. Now, that's what Iran is saying. And obviously, they're lying about the decimated part. There's nothing to decimate because the base was evacuated and empty when it was attacked. We are hearing right now that apparently there are reports from some sources claiming that Iran coordinated the attacks on the Al-Udeid airbase in Qatar with Qatari officials and gave advance notice that the attacks were coming to minimize the casualties, according to 3 Iranian officials. So right now it's unclear if there was coordination with the Qataris and the Iranians over this attack, but clearly it was a violation of Qatari airspace. They had to turn away a whole bunch of flights from their airspace to be able to make it safe, so that way they weren't shot down accidentally by these missiles. So that's currently the breaking news right now, but it sounds like the Iranians are trying to twist the story to where it makes it sound like it's less bad than it is.
And this is an absolutely heinous story at the moment, as I do have to once again remind everyone that we have heard that the Islamic Republic of Iran has targeted an attempt to attack multiple U.S. bases throughout the Middle East, including those in Iraq, Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, and others. It is quite a significant attack, and one that is showing that the Islamic Republic of Iran has largely decided to seal their fate. There was the option that the United States was not going to get involved militarily in any way beyond this point, and it largely was up to the Iranian response, at least according to the words of the President of the United States, to see what would happen or what the future fate of the Islamic Republic would be. And it appears that the Islamic Republic has chosen today full annihilation, as they have responded in aggressive form, attempting to strike and destroy U.S. bases throughout the entirety of the region. We are still getting more breaking news at this moment coming out about this unfortunate breaking news situation, but it does appear that the United States will be drawn into this war, whether we want it to be or not. We are still trying to find more information and news at the moment about the strikes, and we are hoping that we hear that U.S. air defense has shot down almost all incoming ballistic missiles. What do we got?
So right now we do have a new video which just came out showing the remains of a Patriot PAC-3 interceptor that hit an Iranian ballistic missile over Qatar, and we do see it here on the ground. It is a PAC-3. We can't confirm that visually, so let's take a look at the video.
هاي قطعة في البيت صاروخ تو طايح.
That is a Patriot PAC-3.
طيحناه هني طبعا عرفت علي أول ما دش
Also, Also, by the way, Enforcer, we are hearing a new version of the story about what Qatar actually was able to shoot down in coordination with the U.S. air defense systems. It looks like Qatari officials intercepted 9 out of 10 of the Iranian missiles launched at the U.S. Al-Udeid airbase, with one missile falling into an open area of the base, and that's being reported by I-24 News. Now, we did get a video allegedly showing a direct impact inside of Qatar. It was just one missile, and we did have a video of that. We were not really sure if that was corroborated because we had heard before that all of them were shot down. But Enforcer, let's go take a look at that video of the reports of the direct hit in Qatar. I just put under a likes tab if you want to see it at the very top. And let's see if maybe that one fell into the open area of the base as they're reporting.
It is really hard to say because we have no geolocation for this clip. It's possible that actually is showing one of the only direct hit that attempted to land within the area of the Al-Udeid airbase inside of Qatar, but at the moment we're not entirely sure on that. However, it does appear quite clear at the moment that the Islamic Republic of Iran has attempted to strike and destroy the Al-Udeid airbase, and if they had it their way, they would have most likely successfully hit the airbase if the air defense of Qatar and the United States had not been operating so proficiently or effectively at the moment. Multiple Iranian missiles would have ended up hitting the airbase over the course of these few minutes that have just transpired here on air. It is quite clear, however, that the Islamic Republic of Iran did launch and conduct their attack throughout the region with the attempt of striking, destroying, and also killing U.S. service members throughout the area. Luckily, so far, we have not heard of any direct hits on U.S. bases that would have resulted in any kind of significant casualties, but we do have a lot of people right now speaking on their opinions on how the United States is going to respond to the attack, or largely how they're wanting the United States to respond to the attack. And so, Matthew, what are people thinking, and what are you thinking as well?
Okay, so we have run a poll right now about the situation because, of course, the main question right this second is how is the United States going to respond to this attack on U.S. bases by the Iranian regime? So it appears to me that this is one of the biggest escalations that Iran could have made, and this was a very grave escalation here that's going to have some consequences to it. And it looks like 63% of the audience said airstrikes are going to happen on Iranian cities and bases by the U.S. Air Force. We're also seeing about 21% say nothing will happen. The U.S. will call it symbolic and call it a day, and 5% said ground forces might be considered. And I would say for right now, the ground forces are on hold. I don't see any evidence whatsoever of going to a ground war with Iran. That might change in the future, but for right now, I really don't see that happening. So I believe we will conduct airstrikes on Iranian bases. So we're not going to let this go unanswered. I would be very shocked if we simply said, oh, it was nothing, we're just going to let it go. That's not the MO of this current administration. So I think we're going to see massive attacks on Iranian air bases and potentially even cities as well, where the IRGC operates from. And honestly, I would say it's justified. The Iranians have crossed a line which they should not have crossed, and now they're going to have to pay a dear price for it. And at this point, I would say the U.S. should probably join in with the Israelis in their stated goal of regime change inside of Iran. It's about time to get rid of this nutcase that's in charge of Iran. He's clearly proven that he does not have restraint whatsoever, and it's time to restrain him instead and force him to be restrained. And if we need to take him into custody or just get rid of him, whatever the case, it's going to have to happen eventually because this guy's out of control and he's putting civilians in danger every single day. So it's gotten to that point, and I think the Americans are going to go in and go get him. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that the United States will most likely respond and should respond to the attack that the Iranians have just conducted. One, we were able to hear prior that the President of the United States already made it clear that further U.S. action would result onto whether or not the Iranians responded, and they have clearly responded with this attack today. I would say the United States is most likely, highly likely chance, going to respond to this attack by the Iranians. It also appears that the analysis from several days ago, well, at least 2 days ago at this point, was correct that after the U.S. airstrikes were conducted and concluded at Isfahan, Natanz, and Fordow, that the Islamic Republic of Iran was going to respond directly for the first time in history and actually directly fire at U.S. forces throughout the region. I know a lot of people say that Operation Praying Mantis was in response to an Iranian strike on a U.S. destroyer, but the reality is that from what we understand, that mine was set inside of Iranian territorial waters, but apparently it broke loose from its chain or holdings and actually floated into an international waterway, and that's how it ended up striking that U.S. destroyer, which was still an attack by Iran, but not an intentional directed attack. This is the first time we've ever actually seen an intentional directed attack officially by the Islamic Republic of Iran against U.S. forces inside the Middle East. So with that in mind, I would have to say the United States is certainly going to respond, and it is most likely going to be an incredibly bad time for the Islamic Republic of Iran, because if the United States has just been able to successfully shoot down all incoming missiles from this attack, it is going to make it pressingly clear, and even more so, that while the Iranians may have been able to land a missile or two on a hospital and other unfortunate places throughout the state of Israel, it does not appear that they'll have that same fortune or luck, at least in this instance, with the United States Armed Forces. I would have to say that airstrikes on key government targets within the cities of Tehran will most likely be likely or evident at this point, as well as strikes against the Iranian Navy and other key military and nuclear sites will most likely be targeted and destroyed once again by U.S. forces, as we will be seeing that this will devolve into a coalition conflict with Israel, the United States, and possibly the United Kingdom joining forces to target and destroy key sites and figures within the Islamic Republic of Iran and attempt to bring down the government altogether. But it is quite clear at this point that the United States of America is about to be getting proportional on the Iranians, and that there will not be a lack of the conflict, at least here in the foreseeable future, as the Iranians have decided to seal their fate today. So we will be waiting to see what exactly the United States response is. We already know that the president has been inside of a National Security Council meeting in the Situation Room for about 35 minutes at this point, but we've not been able to hear any official statements or comments by the President of the United States on the rapidly developing situation inside the Middle East and the fact that a missile has landed and hit at the Al-Udeid airbase inside of Qatar. I once again want to point out that, at least according to Qatari officials, that missile did land inside of an empty area of the airbase, and so while it was a direct hit onto the territory of the airbase, we do not believe that there's been any wounded or killed as a result of that strike at the moment, fortunately. We will be waiting to get more information and news about those attempted strikes or the singular strike that we've been able to confirm has hit, but it does appear at the moment that the United States is under attack inside of the region and may as well be in a full state of war, not only for the attacks that were conducted against Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan, but also for the fact that U.S. forces are now under attack in the region from the Islamic Republic of Iran. But at this moment, we actually have more breaking news coming out. So, Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so right now we're getting word that apparently suicide drones have been launched at a U.S. base in Iraq. That apparently happened 50 seconds ago, according to some reports we're seeing. So we're currently waiting to see exactly how many have been launched, who launched them, and exactly which military base is it going to. It's most likely going to Baghdad, and that's probably where it's heading. So we'll have to wait and see and get all the details about it here in a little while. But in the meantime, though, we do have some more footage coming out from Bahrain and also Qatar. We have some footage showing an interception of one of the Iranian ballistic missiles over Qatar right now on our Twitter page. If you take us there as well right now, you'll see that footage there on the profile page. If you scroll down a few posts, and it should be down there, Status 6 Military and Conflict News.
Let's see.
Scrolling down a little bit more, and a little bit more. There you go.
Here we are. And let's take a look at the clips. We can see the interceptions being conducted in the skies over the nation state of Qatar. Or the city-state of Qatar, and it does appear that once again, quite clearly, there was a significant number of Iranian ballistic missiles fired. Outside of that, we were also able to hear that U.S. troops that are inside of Syrian military bases, including the Atamf garrison, are on full alert at the moment, as it does appear that the main remaining base in northeastern Syria, hosting U.S. troops, which is a part of the Syrian Democratic Forces, is on full alert and mobilized for possible attacks by Iran or Iran-aligned groups, a Syrian security source reported to Reuters. The base is known as Kasrak and is one of the two bases in the northeastern Hasakah province where U.S. troops are based. We've also been able to see some additional video as well showing us the situation on the ground in Qatar as Qatari citizens responded to the sounds of air raid sirens as the missiles were beginning to enter Qatari airspace. It's very unfortunate to see the kind of panic and pandemonium that's now filling the streets and open venues of the nation or the city-state of Qatar, as it appears that it is under attack. Well, it is under attack by Iranian ballistic missiles, and all of these people are having to try and run to safety or somewhere where they may be able to find shelter. Once again, showing why the Qatari government's official response has been incredibly violent and angry against the Islamic Republic of Iran, as not only did they threaten the lives of U.S. service members at air bases and facilities throughout the region, including Qatar, but they also sent the entirety of the Qatari public into an absolute state of panic and pandemonium. We also were able to see the air raid sirens once again sounding over Bahrain in this clip as well. That's the end of that clip right there. But once again, showing us that Bahrain and Qatar do have active air raid sirens alerts on, and it does appear that multiple citizens in Bahrain or in Qatar are seeking shelter, as U.S. bases have been put on largely a red alert at the moment for incoming ballistic missile launches that may still be coming from the Islamic Republic of Iran. I do want to make it clear that at the moment it appears that the main missile attack has concluded, but we do not know if the Fatah's blessing operation being conducted by the Iranians, it consists of a singular wave of missiles being fired, or whether there will be multiple waves of ballistic missiles fired towards U.S. bases throughout the region. One thing is incredibly certain, however: the Islamic Republic of Iran has decided to take hostile action against the United States forces within the Middle East, and I would also have to say that a closure of the Strait of Hormuz is most likely inevitable at this point within the next 48 to 72 hours. The Islamic Republic of Iran will have to seize the opportunity while their navy is available, or existing for a large part, to be able to push forward and close the Strait of Hormuz. We also understand that fortunately all U.S. and British naval assets inside of the Persian Gulf have been moved out days prior, meaning that these ships will not be stuck inside of the Persian Gulf as a veritable fishbowl and will be able to be fired at by Iranian shore-based anti-ship missile batteries, which could fire at and attempt to destroy the U.S. warships that were inside of the Persian Gulf prior. It appears that those vessels were able to break out into the open Arabian Sea and have been able to join the USS Nimitz and the USS Carl S. Vinson carrier strike groups to be able to remain in safety with a larger number of defenses around them on board the other warships, and to also ensure that a response, if necessary, which it now will be, could be conducted from the realm of safety inside of the Arabian Sea. But it does appear that we are still getting more news and information at the moment about all of the incoming developments and information that we've been able to receive on the situation coming out of the Islamic Republic of Iran, Qatar, Bahrain, and Iraq, as well as Syria, as we have still been able to hear that there have been reports of attacks pretty much across the entirety of the region. Any U.S. airbase or any U.S. military base at all that is near to the proximity of Iran's borders in any direction appears to come under attack at this moment. The only attacks that we have not heard of so far, which is quite interesting to note, is any attacks on U.S. bases that are inside of the Anatolian Peninsula, inside of the Republic of Turkey. We have not been able to hear of any attacks within that area at the moment, so it does appear that all of the attacks that Iran has conducted were targeted against U.S. bases only inside of Iraq, Syria, Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Oman, at least from the moment from where the air raid siren alerts are coming from. We are still waiting for more information. I've actually seen someone in the chat say, do you know what part of Iraq has been hit? At least at the moment, it appears that some sort of an attack has been conducted against the Aid al-Assad airbase within western Iraq inside the desert, and it also appears that some sort of an attack may have possibly been conducted on a small U.S. garrison in northern Iraq near to the area of Erbil, but we haven't been able to confirm that one yet. Matthew, what news do we have?
Okay, so right now we're hearing of ongoing anti-aircraft fire right now in the capital, Tehran, which is the capital of Iran, and we're being told by a correspondent there that apparently they're hearing it live on the air, so there is an ongoing presence of anti-aircraft fire right now, but there are no indications that this is anything else than normal Israeli attacks. So we're not hearing any evidence that maybe U.S. forces have joined these airstrikes. It is possible that maybe they have, but we're not getting any evidence of that right now. But there is an active air defense right now in Tehran, so somebody's attacking, but we're not sure who right this second.
And we are still waiting for any information on the current airstrikes inside of Tehran. It is highly likely that this is continued Israeli Air Force activity, as we have been able to see that the Israeli Air Forces continue to operate with a high tempo of operations throughout the conflict so far, and has been able to target and destroy a significant number of facilities practically over a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week period since the Israeli hostile actions began against Iran around 2 weeks ago. It does not appear that the United States of America is involved offensively in any way against the Iranians at this moment, and it appears appears that force posturing within the region is entirely defensive, as multiple U.S. bases are defending themselves from the incoming Iranian attacks, but it does appear that we are still hearing that the President of the United States may be in a national security meeting at the moment. It has now been going on for 45 minutes, and we have not been able to hear a conclusion to that national security meeting, at least here on this stream at the moment. We are still waiting for any additional breaking news or information that may be coming out about that here soon, or any statements or addresses that the President of the United States may be planning to make. However, once again, to recap for many people who are here at the moment, just to get you all up to speed, about 40 minutes ago, as we were, well, actually about 50 minutes ago, because it took us 10 minutes to get on air, we were able to hear announcements that air raid sirens were sounding over Bahrain, Qatar, and Kuwait as Iranian ballistic missiles were beginning to fly over the airspace of the Persian Gulf and into the area of Qatar, Bahrain, and Kuwait. We were then able to follow that information with video of air defense fire being conducted by the U.S. Air Defense Forces inside of Qatar, along with the Qatari Air Defense Forces also firing at the incoming Iranian ballistic missiles. We were able to hear from the Qatari government at the moment. Their initial report is that 10 ballistic missiles were fired into the airspace of Qatar. 9 of those were shot down directly by air defense, and 1 of those missiles did hit directly onto the area of the Al-Udeid airbase inside of Qatar. We have seen the Qatari government has already announced that this is a blatant violation and an attack on their sovereignty, and that the Qatari government reserves the right to respond to the Iranian attack that was just conducted. The Iranian government announced not long after that this is a part of Operation Fada's Blessing, and according to their information at the moment, they are saying that they were not intending to violate the sovereignty of Qatar or any other places throughout the Middle East, and that they were only attempting to attack the evil Americans, which they've already stated they were going to be striking at some point in the future in response to the U.S. attacks that were conducted against their nuclear sites, which does appear to be a poorly planned move. It seems that multiple countries within the region are already responding poorly to this and are not viewing it as an Iranian attack against U.S. bases, but an Iranian attack against the entirety of the Middle East, including the U.S. bases inside of the host countries and the host countries themselves. We do have more breaking news coming out at this moment. And Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so right now we're getting word, apparently from one of our sources, that the Trump administration was allegedly aware of it in advance of Iran's attack on the Al-Udeid air base in Qatar. So it sounds like there might have been a pre-notice and a pre-notification to Qatar and also to the United States before Iran conducted their ballistic missile attack targeting our bases. Now, once again, some people might view that as symbolic. To me, I view that as a direct attack. And I think that anybody with, any type of patriotism would also view that as an attack as well, because they've launched stuff at our bases. And yes, we did shoot it all down, but what if one made it through? That, to me, that would have not been symbolic. That would have been devastating and could have killed our troops. So I would say that we are due a response. Now, I'm not sure if the administration is going to take this as maybe Iran's off-ramp, maybe. I'm not really sure if they're going to view it that way, but I don't really view it that way. I view this as a direct attack on America, basically, and we shouldn't just let this slide, because if we let this slide, they just terrorized the citizens of Qatar, they just terrorized our troops, and they've also violated the sovereignty of multiple different countries. So, we'll have to see what they're going to do here, but right now, that's what we're hearing. But also, a senior Iranian official has just said that the war could last up to 2 years or more, according to CNN. So it looks like the Iranians are pretty much getting ready for a prolonged conflict of up to 2 years. I'm not sure if the Iranians can hold on that long unless they have help from Russia or China, and that must indicate that they must be getting help from Russia or China, because they probably don't have the ability on their own 2 feet to stand up in a war that long. So it must indicate they're getting some help.
I would say that the statement might not be indicating that they're getting any help. It just may be more so of a nationalist statement by the Iranians to make it sound like they could last a long time. Because the Iraqis leading into the Gulf War said that they would be able to hold off the Americans for years and turn it into a bloody war near to Kuwait. And then they ended up not surviving longer than about a half year after the U.S. airstrikes and U.S. defensive operations on the ground had concluded. The Iraqi state had pretty much been neutered at that point militarily. So I think that the Iranians are largely speaking out of their ass at this point. I don't really think they have any confirmed support of any large kind by the Russians or the Chinese. And at the moment, that official is just making some sort of a massive bravado statement, because we already know that they make massive statements with a lot of bravado in them. And I think that statement may also be falling within that as well. I don't think there's been any confirmed statements that even the Iranian government has gotten at the point of any confirmed support by the Chinese or the Russians in a large enough material form that it will help the Iranians to keep on going. We know that the Russians certainly couldn't afford to give any sort of major support such as that for the Iranians to survive against U.S. attacks for over 2 years. And we already know that the skies have been opened up over Iran, and the Israelis are attacking at a whim wherever they want in the country, including the northeast of Mashhad. So I would generally say that while the Iranian officials may be wanting to say that they could survive for 2 years, the likely reality is that the Iranians will not be able to survive much longer, especially after the United States gets involved in airstrikes, as the Israelis have pretty much opened up the skies of Iran by destroying the air defense sites over the past 2 weeks or so. But we'll have to wait and see what these developments are. Maybe they have been able to get support from the Chinese or the Russians, but I generally think that statement is more so just one of propaganda and rhetoric than one that actually has any real backing to it, at least at the moment. But
it could be. It could be. But also at the same time, though, we got some more breaking news happening right this second. We're getting word of huge explosions in Tehran in recent minutes, and the Israeli Air Force is now confirmed to be attacking Tehran right this second, according to IDF military radio. So it looks like Tehran is indeed under Israeli attack. We're not sure, once again, if the U.S. is involved in it. Right now, there's no indications the U.S. is currently attacking Tehran or anywhere inside of Iran, but the Israelis are certainly doing it, and they're attacking really hard right now over the capital city. Also, by the way, while we're waiting for more picture and video evidence to come out of the attack on Tehran, we are also hearing some catastrophic news for Russia right now. Right now, the crude oil price is absolutely tumbling right now, which is very bad news for Russia because it's how they rely on basically for their economy to make money to keep their country afloat. So not good news for Russia today, and I'm sure they're going to be a little bit upset with Iran, who wants some help from Russia right now. So very interesting news.
So it does appear that the Russian Federation's shadow fleet and their economy is going to be doing quite horrendously, as the oil barrel prices have actually been dropping globally around the world as the situation has been going on. Not a good thing for the Russian Federation, not really a good thing for the Iranians either, but it does appear that things have actually turned against everyone's favor, at least within the Axis powers at the moment, if we want to call them that, inside the Russian Federation and Iran, as the oil prices are beginning to rapidly drop. We are still waiting for more information and news at the moment about the ongoing situation inside the Middle East, but it is quite clear at the moment that the President of the United States is making some sort of decision about what is happening. I'm not entirely sure if the United States is going to just sit by and let this happen. I see some people saying that the United States was going to let the attack go through and no foul, no harm, but at the same time, we've seen that the Israelis have intercepted and shot down a significant number of ballistic missiles fired at them from Iran in the past, and the Israelis never really operated under the no harm, no foul sort of a concept. Not only that, it's highly likely that Iranian proxy forces will also start to attempt attacks on U.S. bases throughout the region here in the near future, including the Al-Najaba in Iraq and the Yemeni Houthis within western Yemen, just to name a small number of them, and that could also start to spurn an inevitable U.S. response to the Islamic Republic of Iran. An actual attack against a country is an attack. It does not matter whether you were pre-notified or not. If a criminal or a bank robber notified you that they were going to shoot you before they shot you, does it make it any less so the fact that they shot at you? The crime would still be attempted murder if they even missed you or you were able to get out of the way of their gun since they told you that they were about to shoot you. And this is how I feel about this situation at the moment, is that even if the Iranians pre-notified us that they were going to be attacking the U.S. forces inside the Middle East, this is still, for the large part, an attempted form of trying to strike and destroy U.S. forces in the Middle East. That is incredibly evident. The Islamic Republic of Iran fired these missiles. We have been able to hear that one of them actually hit directly on Al-Udeid, but not within an area that had any sort of specific buildings or equipment stored inside of it. It's making it entirely clear at this moment that the Islamic Republic of Iran did conduct this attack with the intent that if American air defense or any sort of national air defense of the host states were not able to shoot down these incoming missiles, they were going to be hitting and destroying U.S. air bases and possibly wounding and killing U.S. service members at all of these bases. It is a very concerning thing to see at the moment. We are still getting more information and news out at the moment. But Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so I want to address something real quick. Someone in the chat, Live Animal, asked us a very good question that I also had myself because something's not making sense here. They said, "Why is the oil price declining when Iran just attacked U.S. bases?" To say it lightly, that makes no sense. The oil price should have risen dramatically, not plummeted. So I'm not sure what's going on with that. I think there might be some strange, funny business going on because all the indications and all the analysts have been saying that if that happens, if U.S. bases are attacked, the oil price is going to go through the roof. And that's what should have happened. Economically, that's what should have happened as well. But we're not seeing that. And that goes against all logic. That's like all of a sudden gravity being turned off and we all just float off the face of the earth. It's like that. So, Enforcer, check the crude oil quote real quick. I'm just curious to see what it's at right now, and let's see where that price is right now.
So it actually does appear that the price has plummeted quite significantly, actually by about $7 over the course of the day. That's the current crude oil price.
And that makes no sense at all because I've literally I even had to go consult with AI over this one because I have a like basic understanding of economics, but at the same time, this one is so baffling to me that I don't even really even comprehend this at all. AI even says the price should have gone through the roof. For it to plummet, that makes no sense whatsoever. So I'm not sure what is going on with that. If there's some type of funny business or something going on, because that's wild. That's how like having an economic recession in the United States, and all of a sudden the stock prices go to their highest levels in history. It makes no sense. There's something odd with that.
There is something a little bit interesting with that at the moment. I actually would not have a good explanation for this either. But considering that this is something that is largely dictated on an international level and the price is a fixed standard no matter where you are in the world, it is giving us the idea that for some reason people are canceling purchase orders of oil at the moment, or crude oil at least, and this is actually causing for a massive surplus to be seen that has no purchasers, and so the price is starting to drop. That's really the only explanation that could be given as to why the price is dropping, because the price is directly related to the demand and supply of these crude oil barrels that are being sold around the world at any given moment. So it is a little bit interesting to know, just to put this out there for everyone, that apparently this is suggesting or showing that across the world, petroleum orders or crude oil orders are being just slashed in massive numbers, apparently, because just over the course of the day alone, the price has dropped from about $74.23 all the way down to $69.80. That is about a drop of about $4, or a little bit more than that, as a matter of fact. It's about a drop of $4.50 or so. It is a little bit interesting
Wait a
to
minute.
note that.
I guess here's one theory. Do you think that the investors, the people that are buying oil, do you think they view this as a situation of de-escalation? Like I know that sounds crazy, but some people are speculating that maybe this is a symbolic attack by Iran on U.S. bases, and maybe the oil investors are hedging their bets on the fact that the U.S. is not going to respond. Maybe. That's a risky bet, in my opinion, because right now it's leaning toward a likely response. I mean, I would say about 60% chance of response by the United States right now on Iran directly. So I don't know. Like that's the only thing I can possibly come up with as a theory is maybe they're thinking this is not going to go anywhere and it'll stop here. But that's risky.
It's possible. We do have to remember, though, that the information that we have been able to get from today's attack inside the Middle East came out only just around an hour ago at this point. It was not. Excuse me, folks. We actually just woke up not too long ago before the stream. We had to run down here and get this thing going. We do not have any information about how the market is responding at the moment to the fact that the Iranians have attacked the United States, because this did just happen an hour ago, and that information has been getting compiled over the course of the whole day today since the trading opened for crude oil barrels. So with that in mind, we may see that there's now a spike that follows, or if it continues to decline, that'll be a little bit interesting. Nevertheless, I'm not an economics expert, and I do not profess to be one here on the channel at all. That's not my area of expertise or area of knowledge whatsoever, so I wouldn't really be able to explain why this is rapidly plummeting and dropping as it is at the moment. But it does appear that many people have many different ideas, and of course, the chat is filled with experts, and a lot of these experts are contradicting each other, so we'll have to see what the real answer is in the future, and hopefully try and figure out why in the world this price plummet is starting to happen at the moment, because it is quite an interesting one to see. But we are
Well,
going to...
and Enforcer, in the meantime, while we're waiting on that, let's check Flight Radar 24 because right now I'm seeing that Visegrad 24 is reporting that Kuwait, Iraq, Bahrain, the UAE, and Qatar, they've all closed their airspace. So let's take a look at the transponder information over the region and see where these flights are currently going and if there's a huge swath of the area that is pretty much cleared out of air traffic at the moment.
And let's take a look. So it does appear that at the moment, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar's, maybe even the UAE, actually not the UAE, have all had their airspace closed. We can see that there are some flights that appear to still be coming in at the Kuwait City International Airport, but we have not been able to see any other significant numbers of flights that are exiting the country or entering the country at this moment. So it does appear that they are in the process of closing down their airspace at this time, at least from what we can see right now.
What are these flights over Jordan right there? Can you just like click on a couple of those and see what those are over Jordan?
This one is a Royal Jordanian flight. This is also a Royal Jordanian flight, but this is a leaser aircraft. This is also Royal Jordanian flight. This is also another Royal Jordanian flight. And then all of these down here are part of an air corridor that appear to be using a multitude of aircraft, including Fly Dubai, Emirates, and also another Royal Jordanian aircraft.
Very interesting. It's just crazy to see the entire region pretty much wiped out of flights like that. Just the entire area is just a dark zone right now for flights. So quite crazy to see.
It is pretty crazy to see, I gotta say, but still a very interesting development nevertheless, and once again showing that the Islamic Republic of Iran has decided in their best opinion that instead of trying to avoid the ire of a future U.S. attack, they have now decided to attack U.S. bases throughout the region. So we are still waiting and hearing more additional information at the moment as we are covering this information and news live, but once again, folks, this is quite an interesting and concerning day to see that U.S. Armed Forces service members have currently come under attack. I actually do personally have some friends that are currently over in the Middle East at the moment that are a part of the armed forces, so I hope that their safety has been assured and that they are well, although they did just come under attack at the moment. So we'll have to wait and see, or I'll have to try and wait and see if I can eventually reach out to them in some way, shape, or form. They aren't able to reach out often or really much at all, and check on them and see if they're doing all right or if they came under attack or whether they didn't. Hopefully I'll be able to hear that all of them are all right and well, because I do know of at least two people that I know as personal friends that I talk to on a pretty regular basis that I haven't talked to for at least a couple of months that have been over in the Middle East, but of course they haven't disclosed the location of where they're at, and I wouldn't either if I knew as well. So hopefully I'll be able to get some information to hear that they actually are all right and doing quite well, at least from what we're hearing at the moment. But this is quite significant news, and it is once again showing us that the Islamic Republic of Iran has chosen war. They had an option after the U.S. airstrikes were conducted. They could have either tried to meet the U.S. demands in the ultimatum, or they could continue to do stupid actions like this and dig themselves into a deeper hole. And I believe that we'll probably hear from the President of the United States that they've dug themselves into a deeper hole at the moment. That really could be the only thing I could assume at the moment, because any other response from the United States would generally appear to be somewhat weak, at least in my opinion. The Iranians did just attack most air bases within the Middle East. They did attempt to hit them. I know a lot of people are going to say we were pre-notified. Most of the missiles were shot down. No one was injured or killed. No harm, no foul. But once again, to bring y'all back to the example of a burglar or a robber that's armed inside of your house, if he tells you he's about to shoot you, and that allows you to get out of the way of the bullet that he still shoots, does that mean that there's no harm and no foul then, and you shouldn't call the cops? Or are you still going to call the cops and get the guy pressed with charges for breaking and entering and also attempted murder? I think most people would still call the police and have the guy charged for attempted murder and also breaking and entering. And so I would say that it's quite obvious, based off of that simple answer to that sort of a simplified sort of a situation that we're seeing, that the United States should respond to the Islamic Republic of Iran's attack at the moment, and that we should continue to see that the United States of America continues to protect its interest within the Middle East, and also continues to ensure the safety of the U.S. Armed Forces and U.S. Strategic interests within the area. But nevertheless, we are still hearing more information and developments coming out of the region at this moment. And also, I do have to say, welcome to everyone who's here at the moment. I would say a big thank you to y'all for watching, but I will be personally honest, I'm not incredibly happy hearing that U.S. forces are under attack at the moment. But nevertheless, we do have more breaking news at this time. What do we got, Matthew?
All right, so right now we're getting word that apparently, according to local authorities, the Al-Udeid air base in Qatar was the only base attacked by Iran during this entire attack. That's the current report we're hearing, and local authorities are denying the attacks in Iraq, but there's no mention that the Al-Assad was attacked by Iranian officials. So that's the current report we're hearing right now. Take that with a grain of salt. We'll have to wait and see, because we did hear about some other attacks elsewhere, but right now that is the report, that apparently the Qatar base was the only one which was targeted by these ballistics, but I'm a little bit skeptical about that. Also, by the way, we have heard that the United States president is monitoring the potential Iranian retaliation against the multiple U.S. bases, including Qatar, and also more locations as well, according to two White House officials. So apparently he is in the Situation Room right now. He's watching this thing unfold live. And apparently there's been no decision made on a retaliation strike by the United States as of right this second. So that appears to be the current situation.
And it does appear that at the moment we are still waiting to hear some conclusion to the national security meeting currently being held in the United States in response to these attacks. But it does appear at the moment that there are some statements coming out that the Al-Assad air base in Iraq was not under attack. And it also appears that at least to some, the Al-Udeid or the Al-Udeid air base, or the Al-Udeid, that's really the only ways you can pronounce it. And it's actually the Al-Udeid air base, at least from what I've been able to hear on the proper pronunciation. The Al-Udeid air base appears, at least according to some claims, to be the only one that was attacked. We were able to confirm, though, with video and picture evidence that there were air raid sirens going off in Bahrain, possibly suggesting that there were some Iranian ballistic missiles that either flew over their airspace or maybe even possibly attempted to hit Bahrain at the moment. We're not entirely sure which. All we've been able to hear are the air defense sirens sounding over the country of Bahrain. So we are still waiting for more additional information on that at the moment. Right now, the image is a little bit foggy. Once again, we're trying to deal with a developing situation at the moment, and so we are not able to confirm or state or non-confirm or create a retraction in the moment as to whether or not the Al-Assad air base or any bases around Erbil and inside of Kuwait were also under attack or not at the moment. So we're still waiting for more information, at least for now, on what's going on within the region. But it still does appear that at least at the moment, we are continuing to get more information as to what's going on inside the Middle East and what the response may be from the United States of America here in the near future. We do know that at the moment, the United States is ready to respond in any given situation with defensive and offensive actions against the Islamic Republic of Iran for the attack that they've conducted today. We do know that the Islamic Republic of Iran is currently seeing, at least from what we've been able to find, that two U.S. carrier strike groups are currently inside of the Arabian Sea, including the USS Nimitz and the USS Carl S. Vinson. We have also been able to hear that there is a significant number of U.S. aircraft that have been based inside of Saudi Arabia, and possibly some in Qatar, although we've mostly been able to hear that all naval and air assets have been evacuated out of Bahrain and Qatar a good while ago. We are also hearing that apparently there is still a decent amount of significant military presence of the United States inside of Iraq and Kuwait, which could be used in a response to the Islamic Republic of Iran here in the very near future if the U.S. was to decide to make such an action, which would most likely be prudent at this moment, to be able to deal with the Islamic Republic of Iran. So the Iranians are not days away from being counterattacked by the United States at this moment. It actually could be hours or less than a day until a U.S. counterattack was to commence against the Islamic Republic of Iran and largely join in with the Israelis in targeting and destroying key sites throughout the Islamic Republic of Iran. But still, a very concerning situation at the moment, and it does appear that we are waiting to see what the United States response will be. So, Matthew, do we have any additional updates or developments at the moment on this situation?
So right now, it appears we've gone into a bit of a news lull right this second. Iran has ceased all their attacks on the U.S. bases as of right now. So also, we do have a little piece of breaking news that just came out right this second from FiTux News. We are hearing that President Trump is willing to escalate U.S. military involvement if necessary, according to a senior White House official. And Trump was due to talk to national security officials Monday afternoon, and it's possible that his posture could change that we're hearing right now. So no commitment to action so far, but once again, the National Security Council has not met yet, and they need to actually meet first before they start, of course, making decisions. So that's currently what they're saying right now. So it's kind of unclear whether the U.S. is going to have a response to this entire situation or not. Also, by the way, we did get a video here showing the Iranian missiles being launched to Qatar from their source inside of Iran, if you want to take a look.
And let's take a look at this clip. It does appear that it was quite a significant number of missiles, at least if we were to take this clip as a part of Operation Fata's Promise, conducted by the Iranians, that were launched against the U.S. airbase inside of the Al-Udeid airbase, at least at a minimum.
Are you saying father's promise or are you saying Fato's promise?
Fata's Promise.
Oh, they said father. I was like, father's promise. I'm like, that's a wild name for a operation.
Yeah, every time I say Fata's Promise, which is the name of this military operation by Iran, I always think of like an Italian guy from New York saying Fata, like because it almost sounds like it. I mean, there's really almost no way to make it sound different. But it is Fata's Promise. It's just that due to my accent and pronunciation, I always say Fata, almost like it's a D instead of a T inside of Fata. But it is Fata's blessing, not Fata's. But beyond that, it does appear that all of these missiles were launched as a part of this attack, at least from what we're hearing at the moment. And it also does appear that this was the likely suspects that we've seen in prior attacks conducted against the state of Israel, at least if we were to take this clip at face value. These missiles were the Ahmad and the Ghadar, along with the most likely Karam Shahar, although I did not personally see a Karam Shahar missile in any of this footage at the moment, which is quite distinct as it does look like a Crayola crayon just sized up to a large form. So it appears that all of these were Ghadars and Ahmads that were launched, and those are fairly shorter range. They still have enough range to actually reach into Saudi Arabia, but also appears the Iranians decided, at least in this attack, to start using the cheaper and more numerous Ghadar and Ahmad missiles instead of the brand new Karam Shahar, which they have been using against the state of Israel for quite some time at the moment. Nevertheless,
So also, Enforcer, we got some more breaking news right this second. Currently, we are seeing video here on our Twitter page. After Iran's so-called victory strikes in the U.S. base in Qatar, Iranians described scenes in Tehran with music in the streets and motorcyclists waving flags. So people are clearly celebrating the attacks inside of Tehran right now, and it looks like they're going off in the streets.
Huh.
Hopefully it's not copyrighted.
Hopefully not. I have a feeling it probably isn't. But we'll let it keep playing just so y'all can see it. So it does appear that the Iranians are already celebrating, maybe in some sort of a staged stage activity or celebration, or maybe an actual spontaneous celebration that the Iranians have attacked the U.S. forces inside of the Middle East, at least from what we're seeing in Tehran at the moment. This may be some sort of an organized demonstration, or it may actually be a demonstration of Khamenei supporters, because there are going to be supporters of the current government inside of Iran. We do have to remember, folks, that there were actual legitimate supporters of the Nazi government in Germany. Not everyone in Germany hated the Nazi government. There actually were open, avid supporters of such an extremist form of governance, and it's highly likely that there are also a decent number of supporters inside of Iran itself of the actual Islamic Republic's government as well, and these may be some of these people. So this might be a spontaneous demonstration, or it may be a state-structured and state-created demonstration in result of the attack. We're not incredibly sure which one it is at the moment, but it is quite clear that there's some sort of mild celebrations being conducted within the city of Tehran at the moment as they play music and do all kinds of other silly stuff like riding around on mopeds, waving Iranian flags in response to the attack that the Iranians just conducted against U.S. bases. So we'll be waiting to see what kind of additional information that we are getting at the moment from that area. But once again, I have to say that this is an incredibly unfortunate incident that has happened inside of the Middle East. We have been able to hear, at least at the moment, that there are no wounded and killed, and it appears that no U.S. bases have suffered any significant damage, but we did just see that the Islamic Republic of Iran has fired at an attempt to hit multiple U.S. bases throughout the area. We are able to confirm that Al-Udeid is one. We are still waiting to get any kind of confirmation or lack of confirmation about the attacks that were supposedly conducted on other bases throughout the region. At the moment, the National Security Council has been convened in the Situation Room at the White House as we await any additional details or statements from the President of the United States at the moment. This is a very concerning and rather odd development at the moment. We actually expected that the Islamic Republic of Iran would respond and would attack the U.S. bases within the area. It's just that it generally was expected to be within these next few days. We did not know what the scale or size of the attack was going to be, but now seeing that the Iranians have attacked, it is quite obvious at this point that the United States has a choice of responding to this or not. I have a feeling that the current administration may actually decide to respond to this at the moment, as it is quite clear that the Islamic Republic of Iran has no signs of stopping anytime soon, and this is an attempt to make the United States look weaker than the Iranians within the region, and that simply cannot be tolerated. We will not be tolerating that, most likely, as an official U.S. position is allowing the Iranians to come out looking like they came out on top. That is something that we are simply not going to allow, as it's going to make the U.S. security assurance sphere within the region look weak, and it's also going to make other countries inside of places like Qatar and Bahrain start to question whether or not they should be a part of the U.S. security assurance sphere or alliance within the area, as that may not provide any solitude or solace to their citizenry who just came under an unsolicited attack and ran through the streets in panic as a result of the incoming missiles. I also have to thank everyone so far, although it's been very angering news in my opinion at the moment to hear that U.S. bases have come under attack in the region. We are honored to know that so many people have joined us here to listen to this news. It is also likely that some people who are listening right now may actually be in the U.S. Armed Forces currently serving or overseas, as we do have a significant number of currently serving and veterans that watch this channel, at least on a regular. If y'all have appreciated this channel and our news coverage at the moment, please make sure to subscribe. We will be making sure to keep you all updated and apprised of any current ongoing developments and situations coming out of the Middle East, Ukraine, and elsewhere around the world, but our attention at this moment is focused entirely on the Middle East, where U.S. forces just came under a aggressive attack by the Islamic Republic of Iran in an attempt to try and hit and destroy these bases and possibly wound and kill our service members. And so we are waiting to get any additional information. It does appear that the attacks have concluded at the moment, so the additional information we are largely waiting for at this moment will be the U.S. potential response to the Iranians conducting this attack, at least in Qatar. But still, a very interesting development nonetheless. Also, Matthew, I'm understanding that we may have some more information at the moment about what is going on. And do we have any at all?
All right, so right this second, doing a quick scan for news. Really nothing new right this second. I did find a video here, which I wish we could show on the stream, but sadly we're not going to be able to. If you want to see this video that I reposted, you have to check our Twitter page for it. Because unfortunately, I believe it is copyrighted. But at the same time, though, I'm doing another scan for breaking news right this very second and trying to see if there's anything else. Let's see here. We do have a new tweet from the United States president here. Let's see here. Let me check it because I haven't had a chance to read it real quick. Let's see. So I'm just going to read it off, and if it gets bad, I'll have to stop. But the president says the sites that were hit in Iran were totally destroyed, and everyone knows it. Only the fake news would say anything different in order to try to demean as much as possible. Okay, so we're going to skip that one right there because that's just it's getting into politics a little bit. But he's claiming once again that the sites, the nuclear sites that were struck, Natanz, Isfahan, and Fordow, he's claiming they were completely destroyed, and any claims to the contrary are simply fake news. So, apparently he's calling Israel fake news as well. I don't know, but we'll have to wait and see some more information on that. But anyways, that appears to be the only information we've got right this second. And rather than that, we seem to be in a bit of a news lull.
And so it does appear that while we are in a news lull, a lot of people are weighing in on what the U.S. response or what the Iranian fate should be as a response to this attack. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about it as well?
Okay, so we asked you all a good question here. What do you personally think the United States should strike, or should they strike Iran for these attacks on U.S. bases? 57% said yes, Iran should pay dearly for this, while 27% said no, de-escalate while it's available, and 10% said I'm really 50-50 on this one. And I say I'm with the 57% very solidly. Iran should pay for this. They put lives in harm's way, and it's not about being symbolic. It's about the fact they fired ballistic missiles at a allied country, which is Qatar. They fired them at our air base. They fired them at our troops. And that's not symbolic. That's an actual attack. So unless we're going to try to pretend like it's something, it's just a little symbolic, little something, like Iran just got a little angry and just fired some deadly ballistic missiles at our troops, let's just sort of ignore that. I would say that's delving into delusional land, because since when do we let people like Iran, who are enemies of the state, fire missiles at our troops and simply turn a blind eye to it? Like, oh, it's just symbolic. It's just the way it works. I don't think I would like to operate like that, especially if I was in charge. I definitely would not operate like that. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that the Iranians should pay for this attack. It does not matter if the Iranians are trying to save face. There's no saving face with the United States. You do not conduct attacks against our forces wherever they may be in the region, just so you can say, hey, we got our asses beat by the U.S. Air Force 2 days ago, but we're going to try and make ourselves look a little bit better and feel better by launching missiles at U.S. service members and putting them in possible harm's way to try and make ourselves look a little bit better and then expect no response. That would not be the case if I was the President of the United States, and I do not believe that that should be the case with the current President of the United States either. I believe that this should be looked at as what it was. It was an attempted attack on U.S. armed forces. One missile actually did hit the base. It ended up not killing or wounding anyone or destroying any equipment, but it still hit. And it showed that any other missiles that were fired that were intercepted could have also hit those bases and could have ended up wounding and killing a great deal of our own service members, which are very citizens of the Republic, much like many of us are here on the stream right now. And that should be responded with the utmost force. The Islamic Republic of Iran doesn't get to attempt a nuclear weapons program outside the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, have it destroyed, and then get to respond by saving face. There is no saving face situation in this. They had a choice of backing down or getting obliterated. And I think they've chosen the option of getting obliterated at the moment because nobody goes out of their way to attack U.S. armed forces overseas in any way, shape, or form and should expect to be able to get away with it for any reason. So I would generally say, I would be with 57%, that the Islamic Republic of Iran should pay dearly for this attack because they did have a choice to not conduct this attack and they decided to press on with it anyways, and now they will have to suffer the consequences. That would be my opinion at the moment. But nevertheless, it does appear that at the moment we have been able to get a small lull in the breaking news, at least for now. And in the meantime, we are going to try and answer a couple of questions of the folks who are supporting our news channel to be able to help to keep running. Just to say this really quickly to a whole bunch of folks who may be new, considering that we're running in a time slot we really never run in. We've never even gotten close to running in this time slot. This channel runs our live streams ad-free and sponsor-free. The only way that we're able to run these shows is through crowd-funded support through the super chats. So the folks who are throwing in super chats right now are actually the folks who are pretty much our sponsors, helping us to make this channel possible as we are here at the moment. I've got to thank them massively. I hope everyone else does give them a huge thanks and a massive amount of appreciation, because those folks are possible for helping us to keep this news running at the moment. And so with that, Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so before we jump into our questions real quick, I do want to cover something else because I was notified by Ms. Disa that apparently Dmitry Medvedev has responded to the United States President Trump about his nuclear comments that he made a short while ago. So I actually reposted this. I just forgot to report on it earlier because it was a little bit off topic. But Enforcer, let's jump to that real quick. I'm going to go ahead and just read it off when we get it here on the screen. It's from Insider Paper on our Twitter page, and it's the response from Dmitry Medvedev.
All right, let's see if we can go get it really quickly. And let's see, it's on the likes tab.
No, it's on the main page.
It's on the main page. I'm not seeing it at the moment. Let me refresh the page. I'm not seeing it actually.
Okay, go to the likes tab. I just liked it.
All right, and let's go to the likes tab. And it showed up there. So this was actually a statement by Dmitry Medvedev in response to the President of the United States. Regarding President Trump's concerns, I condemn the U.S. strikes on Iran. It failed to achieve its objectives. However, Russia has no intention of supplying nuclear weapons to Iran because, unlike Israel, we are parties to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, or Proliferation Treaty. I know quite well what this would entail, having overseen our nuclear forces as president. But other countries might, and that's what's said. That's what was said, and we definitely shouldn't be arguing over who has more nukes. All the more obvious so because the New START Treaty, which I once signed with the U.S. president, is still in force for now. The question is, what comes next? So it appears that Medvedev actually got put in his place by the president, pretty much saying, if you think you're a freak, I'll get freakier. And it appears that they actually snapped Medvedev back into a little bit of sense at the moment, and he actually started to speak like an actual human being instead of some sort of a uncontrolled idiot inside of the Kremlin. So quite an interesting.
It sounds like Putin might have got a hold of him on that one because basically Medvedev, I don't know if Medvedev was maybe told to go out and make that wild nuclear statement that he made before about the nukes in Iran and that whole situation, but it was really out there and Putin hadn't made that statement. So I'm wondering if maybe Medvedev really is that out of control, that maybe Putin didn't give him the approval to say that, and then he's now having to walk it back because he got somehow admonished or scorned by Putin somehow for making that statement.
You know, while my esophagus just collapsed right there for some reason, don't know why. But You know something that's interesting, folks? This actually does show the prevailing theory that we've had in Ukraine. If people would just start to threaten to beat the hell out of the Russians will start to calm down. Because if you all will notice, this is the first time we've ever actually seen a Russian official statement backtracked immediately over the whole time that we've been dealing with anything in Eastern Europe and Ukraine. The United States has continued to try and deal with the Russians with a great deal of civility and respect, and the Russians take that and they spit on it. The president responded this time to Medvedev saying, "Oh, you think you're going to threaten nukes? We have nuclear submarines that could kill you and everyone in Russia. Maybe not a smart idea." And then immediately Medvedev went and backtracked the statement. It shows that if you threaten to brain the Russian government as the United States, they actually will back off of their aggressive statements and rhetoric and actually will start to speak with a little bit more reason. The Russians, as Nixon and many other foreign policy experts on the Soviet Union and the modern day Russian Federation have said, the Russians only understand positions of strength. They do not understand positions of reason or explanation. That's just something that culturally doesn't exist in the Russian Federation. The Russian Federation's government works off of an iron fist. So to work with them, you have to pretty much respond with an iron fist. And you can actually see that by the backtracking of Medvedev that was done right here, those kind of iron fist statements, while seeming quite dangerous and escalatory, actually work to our benefit when dealing with any representatives or officials of the Russian Federation. So a little bit interesting to note there. That's actually quite nice to see that the theory actually does stand true. The people have been saying, and we've been saying here on the channel for years at this point, is that if you treat the Russians with a great deal of aggression, they'll actually treat you with some respect. So with that, I hope we were able to address the counter response by Medvedev, at least from what we have at the moment. And also appears that Ayatollah is packing his things, but we won't be showing that clip, as that appears to be some sort of an AI-made clip. But with that, it is time for us, in the meantime, considering that we've now seen Medvedev's response to the President of the United States, to get on into some questions at the moment. And so what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so jumping into our super chat questions, our first one here goes to Richard M, who put in a $100 donation, and thank you very much, Richard, for that very generous support and the largest super chat of the stream. And he said, "What an excellent recap, and everyone needs to hear that just how you said it. And here's a small thank you."
And that is an absolutely massive thank you. We got to thank you incredibly, however, for supporting this channel and helping it to keep running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, Richard M., we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. That recap is purely the facts. We've been covering this thing since October 7th of 2023, and we have seen every single response and counter response that has been done by both parties so far. And it is quite clear that if you go back to the very beginning of the thing in October 7th of 2023, this was started by Iran in full form, and it's going to be ended by us one way or another, either through the Israelis or through the U.S.'s direct involvement. But it is quite clear to me, in my opinion, that the Islamic Republic of Iran is a terrorist state. They started the entire conflict on October 7th of 2023 when the Israelis responded how they wanted to in their defense against Hamas and Hezbollah. The Iranians, as a country, officially decided to attack the Israelis, meaning that they were the first country in this conflict to fire the shot at either the Israelis or the United States in a larger form. They also were the ones who were developing a nuclear weapon, and also attempting to field it in the future after successful testing. So it is quite obvious to me that recap is incredibly important for people to hear. I'd have to agree with you as well, Richard M. And I got to thank you massively for enjoying that recap that I put out earlier in the stream, and thanking me for putting it out there, because that's the way the thing happened. It wasn't that the Iranians just got attacked out of the blue by the United States yesterday, or that the Israelis started to attack the Iranians out of the blue 2 weeks ago. This is a continuing series of events that started all the way back in the fall of 2023, and this is just a continuation of where it's gotten to today. And a massive thanks to you once again, because if it wasn't for folks like you who were supporting this channel and helping us to keep it running, we wouldn't be able to put out the actual true statements in the actual series of events that's going on, and make sure that the news keeps on going the way it's been going for years at this point on this channel. We've been absolutely proud of what we've been able to do here. We've done an absolutely incredible, amazing series of things. We've been able to raise nearly $1.6 million in support of nonprofits and charities around the world, helping out in the very areas that we cover the news. We've been able to do a great deal of things in support of American and Western interests, including our news coverage itself. And I got to thank you so much once again for the support, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't have been able to put out the actual news that's happening around the world without all of that domestic political fluff that's put in by everyone else in between on every other channel out there, pretty much. Well, actually, every other TV channel out there, a mainstream news platform. platform. But thanks to you once again for the support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, I saw an interesting question here from Private First Class or PFC McDonald, who said, has Iran stated if they will attack more bases in the Middle East, asking for a friend? And I hope your friend is doing okay, by the way, and also I hope you're doing okay as well, since I think you're being sarcastic about the asking for a friend thing. But so far, based on what we know, it sounds like the Iranian attacks on U.S. bases has come to a conclusion. Right now, we're awaiting a U.S. response to these attacks that the Iranians conducted on our bases. Right now, it appears to be that the main remaining base in northeast Syria, which is hosting U.S. troops, is on full alert and mobilized for possible attacks by Iran or Iranian-backed proxy groups. That's currently what we're hearing right now. So if there is the possibility of another attack on U.S. base, it'll most likely be directed at the remaining Syria base, the main remaining base that's hosting U.S. troops. So that is currently what we think is going to happen, but we're really not sure just yet, just to sort of answer your question there. But moving on to our next post here, this one is going to go to Helatrax, who puts in a $55 donation and does not leave a comment, though. But thank you very much, Helatrax, for that support and helping to keep us running. And Enforcer, what say you?
And a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep rolling. Folks like you are making this thing possible and helping us to be able to be on air covering the news right now. I got to thank you massively once again for helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible, and we wouldn't be able to make our practical 24-hour news coverage whenever any major breaking news happens a reality. So a massive thanks to you once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a $20 support from Tyler Bennett. And Tyler said, what if those flights to Iran from China was to pick up their uranium?
It's possible. Some people have actually been suggesting that, and I actually think that might be slightly possible as well. We haven't ever heard of a situation like that before, so it would be a historic first for that to happen. But it's still not out of the picture. I can't really speak much more to it than that, because any other additional details or information that we would be able to get to say whether that's likely or not, we don't have. All we know is that those Chinese aircraft landed inside of Tehran and then took off and flew back. I would actually say that maybe the only thing I could claim would make it look like they were getting the uranium out is if they landed in the city of Qom instead of Isfahan. That would have put them, well, actually Qom or Isfahan instead of Tehran. That would have put them slightly closer to the actual sources of enriched uranium at the Natanz and Fordow facilities. But at the same time, they could have easily transported to Iran as well. All of those facilities are near to a major interstate that travels to Tehran or Isfahan. So it could be likely. I'm not entirely sure how likely it could be, because we have no historical precedent within the 20th or 21st centuries to show that any other country has done that. So just based off of that alone, I generally say that things like that are unlikely, because we haven't seen that it has happened before in history. But that isn't to say that it's entirely unlikely or impossible that something like that could have happened. And so I hope that does address that the best I can. A big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to KG, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you, KG, as well, for that support very much. And he said, according to Yanet News and supposedly NYT, Iran coordinated with Qatar to minimize the damage. And that is true. Based on what we've read so far, it looks like they did pre-notify both the United States and Qatar that the Iranians were going to attack with ballistic missiles. But it's still, in my opinion, I know some people are interpreting that to mean, oh, well, it was just symbolic because Iran told people, and you wouldn't tell somebody unless you were actually trying to, to be nice. The catch is, though, there was no guarantee that our air defense systems were going to shoot down those ballistics. So there was a strong chance that one of those could have made it through and killed our troops. So I can get the fact that some people say, oh, well, Iran did notify us, so it's not that bad. Yeah, it minimizes it a little bit, but in my opinion, not by much, because our troops are still in danger, and that's the most important thing to me. Are our troops' lives about to be wiped out? Obviously, American sons and daughters about to be wiped out in an attack because Iran wanted to be symbolic. So that's my opinion. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I consider the attack to be absolutely atrocious. And it is true that apparently the Iranians did pre-notify the U.S. and the Qataris of the upcoming attack. I still do not think that mitigates the fact that it's an attack. Would Pearl Harbor have been any less severe if the Japanese had pre-notified us that they were going to attack Pearl Harbor? I would say no. I would say that any attack in military history, even if you were pre-notified, it is still an attack. If someone says, "I'm going to come to your house and cause great bodily harm or death to you," and then they show up to your house and they actually try and follow through on that, and then they fail, does that make it any less worse that they tried to? By the letter of the law here in the United States, it actually does not. That is actually attempted murder with what someone would have done, and that actually does show premeditation, which would make it first-degree attempted murder in most states or under most statutes. So that is something to me that would generally say that it does not matter, at least from a logical standpoint, whether they pre-notified anyone or not. I would actually say that the premeditation itself is showing that they operated with a clear, vindictive plan to attack and attempt to destroy U.S. targets and forces within the area. So I would generally say that this, at least on a legal standpoint, actually makes things far worse if we were speaking about it in the sense of this being two individuals and someone was attempting to try and conduct murder here. This actually would be first-degree attempted murder because the Iranians were showing some level of premeditation. So I would say that with that in mind, the fact that they premeditated this attack and even notified us in advance that they were going to conduct the attack, while some people may say that that is largely making it less so the case that it was a horrendously bad thing, I would actually argue that it makes it an even worse thing, as it is showing that they are openly going out of their way and planning in advance, well in advance, to attack U.S. forces, and this isn't some sort of a knee-jerk reaction. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion, but I consider an attack on U.S. forces, whether premeditated or not, whether it succeeded or not, to be an attack, simply put. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, moving on here to our next super chat. Let's see here. Also, I'm going to jump down to this one real quick because I found this one actually kind of funny. Father Dev put in a 5 and said, "My response to PFC McDonald, this is SPC. He said, PII and OPSEC, and don't have your name online like that. And my old NCO is Qatar, and he's okay." I knew that when I read it, by the way. There's a hell of a lot of PFC McDonald's in the military, so that's not really too bad of an OPSEC thing right there. But obviously, it's not good to use your real name online. I will say that. But most people can't identify somebody based on just PFC McDonald. That's like there's thousands of those like all over the place. That's a very common name. But also, we got somebody here pulling the rank. I tell you what. But anyways, I just wanted to read that one off as well. But thank you very much, Father Dove, seriously for that support, and we do appreciate it. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say I thank you for the support. I thank you for sharing that. We always try and encourage folks, because it's very important for national security reasons, to ensure operational security at every level. We've actually had someone in here a couple of days ago. This actually got us a little bit miffed. We spoke about it off stream. We didn't act like it though on air. But someone actually said, "I'm at an airbase where these aircraft just took off. I'm working here in the Air Force, and I just filmed them taking off." And we were like, why would someone do that? That's an operational security violation. That's actually a big no-no. That will get you in trouble in the military if it's found out if that you did that. People have got to be careful, and people have got to be informed what they're doing. A lot of what we do here on stream is stuff that can easily be found online. For example, whenever we showed the in-air tankers over the Pacific when the B-2s were supposedly flying over the Pacific, all of that was being seen on Flight Radar 24. Those aircraft had their transponders on, so literally anyone in the world, including Iran, could see those aircraft on flight radar or on any sort of public transponder system. Those sorts of things are open source intelligence, and generally anyone can find them out there in the world. However, things that cannot be found, for example, are aircraft with their transponders off. For example, bombers taking off from a U.S. airbase on an airstrike mission or any sort of a bombing campaign. And then we'll see that someone will actually say, "I filmed these aircraft taking off." Not only do they know what airbase those took off from, but they know generally how long it will take for that aircraft to arrive, how many of them took off, what kind of supporting equipment or vehicles they have with them, such as in-air tankers. Those sorts of things can cause a lot of operational security violations and can cause a tremendously bad situation in the future. Everyone does have to remember that the only reason why a single F-117 Nighthawk was ever shot down over Serbia was for the fact that there was a significant OPSEC violation in that the F-117s took off at a routine time every single day in the morning, and pro-Serbian observers would just sit outside of the airbase and wait for those aircraft to take off, so that way the Serbian air defense commanders in Serbia could just look up into the skies with binoculars and wait for one of those aircraft to show up and then take pot shots at them. Also, the only other reason why the F-117, at least in Serbia, was shot down was because they waited for the F-117 to show up, they saw it, and then they fired at it and literally guided in the missile pretty much by hand right into the bomb bay of that F-117 and destroyed it. So once again, folks, operational security is incredibly important. It actually is the only thing that so far we've ever been able to see has killed a stealth bomber is a lack of operational security and not the lack of the stealth bomber's stealth abilities itself. So once again, folks, everyone's got to make sure to be very careful and vigilant on that sort of stuff. If you have any classified information, that's great, but keep it to yourself because you got that classified information for a reason, and the nation has trusted you with the ability to keep your lips closed and sealed and not sharing that classified information with others. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. Also, by the way, we've got some footage that just came out. And also, by the way, we are getting some early reports that apparently the U.S. president is allegedly not wanting more military engagement in the Middle East. But take that with a grain of salt because there's been a lot of disinformation running around about this because we were told that the B-2s were not heading to Iran. And then the B-2s went straight to Iran and they bombed the hell out of Iran. So, I'll take all those statements basically at face value right now and just sort of take it with a grain of salt. That's a bit of a contradiction right there, but take it with a grain of salt because right now we really don't know what's going to happen. But the big one is, though, we got footage, the first official footage from the Pentagon of the B-2 stealth bombers executing Operation Midnight Hammer over Iran. We sadly don't have the targeting footage, but we do have the video of them taking off at night and also flying back during the day.
Wait, that might be on our post. I was looking at the likes, sorry. Well, actually, here it is. We'll be watching that clip right here. That is sick.
Oh, look at that.
I'm not going to lie, the B-2s are probably some of the most scary looking bombers out there.
It's usually not very common to see them like that. This is one of the first times I've ever seen like a lot of them in formation like that.
Also, Cannon Gardner, there is actually a small toilet facility on board the B-2, at least from what we know. There's some sort of a laboratory in there, or a laboratory, whatever you want to call it. But there is one. But we see them now landing back at Whiteman after the strikes were conducted. It appears that this footage was all compiled at Whiteman Air Force Base itself, which is very interesting to note. We see the B-2 touching down. We can see that its actual ailerons are deployed as its air brakes for the large part, attempting to help slow the aircraft down. And you can even see right there a very rare sort of a thing. You can actually see that the B-2 does have reverse thrusters. You can actually see the reverse thrust nozzles opened right there. That's actually a little neat. You don't get to see that often.
Yeah, it is pretty neat.
This was some very high quality footage. I'm not going to lie. And now we see the B-2s pulling in right here. And he's kind of pulling in a little quick.
Those things are pretty large, actually. Like that's a pretty hefty looking aircraft right there when you see it in like comparison to the buses.
Oh yeah, these things are massive. I mean, absolutely massive in their dimensions. Well, that's the end of the clip right there, but still showing us a little bit of the takeoff and landing activities of the B-2s that were a part of Operation Midnight Hammer that conducted the airstrikes against Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. But outside of that, we are going to be getting back into some questions at the moment because we are still having a little bit of a lull in the news after the Iranian missile strikes were conducted and mostly failed. We are still having a little bit of a lull in the news at the moment, so we're going to be continuing to grab some questions in the meantime. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right. So in the meantime, jumping onto our next one here, this one goes to Bazinga X, who puts in a 20. And Bazinga said, a friend of mine who's in the stock market, the prices are dropping because there is a current world surplus in oil. And also the U.S. has increased oil production. And markets are saying there will be an overall surplus in oil for 2025. But the catch is, Bazinga, I'm not saying, first of all, thank you for the support, but I'm not saying necessarily they're wrong. But the timing, you got to admit, the timing is really suspicious. It's literally dropping as the U.S. counterattacked, or as Iran counterattacked on the United States on our bases. Like that happened literally right after that attack happened. So I get the fact there might be a surplus, but for it to drop literally right after Iran attacks us, which it should have gone up, not down, I find that to be really odd. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say it's just really bizarre to see while there is a pretty much active war that is breaking out in the Middle East because the U.S. hit the Iranians and then the Iranians have fired back. Anyone would look at that. I would look at that and say, well, this is certainly not going to end up well. I mean, the Iranians will probably mine the Strait of Hormuz here soon, and then the entire Middle Eastern oil market is closed off to the open world. That's what I believe. But still, the prices are dropping significantly. Perhaps that is the case, but it is still just a really bizarre sort of a thing to witness because I don't think we've ever seen this before. And so with that, I hope that addresses that the best I can. A big thanks to you once again, though, and sharing that information with us. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat here is going to be one from none other than the Total War Guy, who puts in the 20. And he said, an American strike in response to the Qatar attack is highly likely. And in history, last January, a drone attack in Jordan killed 3 U.S. service members and injured over 40 U.S. Troops. And reaction, over 120 airstrikes across Syria and Iraq.
Yes, I'd agree. We do know that the Yatanf garrison in Tower 52 was attacked last year, and 3 U.S. service members were unfortunately killed. We actually did cover that event while it was happening here on air. And I do thank you for sharing that piece of history because it is quite true that there were a large amount of airstrikes that followed throughout Syria and Iraq, and I believe B-1 Lancers were actually used to largely carry through that bombing operation to its end. But outside of that, one thing I'd also have to say is that the United States of America largely has to respond to this attack that the Iranians have conducted. If we did not, what kind of a picture is it painting of the United States? It's painting a picture of the United States at that point, that the United States might do something that has a little bit of gumption for a moment, attempting to denuclearize the country. We're now hearing that the uranium is missing, so that means that there was a secondary objective that was not completed, at least for the original mission goals, which is meaning that it was mostly a failure, but not entirely. And then we're hearing also as well that apparently, we actually have breaking news coming out at the moment. What do we got, Matthew?
So we got some breaking news right now. Iran just stated it will continue its retaliation in response to U.S. attacks on its nuclear facilities, according to a senior Iranian official, and that's allegedly being reported by Reuters. So it looks like whether the U.S. wants to back off the situation or not, Iran is not going to let us back off of it because apparently they're going to continue retaliating against U.S. bases, according to what the statement was from the senior Iranian official. So that's crazy right there. It sounds like, and once again, people were trying to say that this was a symbolic attack. It's clearly not symbolic if they're going to continue retaliating. Even though they pre-warned us, they're going to keep on hitting us. So, I mean, and now it's seeming like a U.S. response is almost certain at this point. I would take my odds up from 60%. I'll take it on up to 80% at this point. Because if Iran's already stating they're going to continue attacking us, then we got to go ahead and respond now. Why would we wait for another attack?
I would agree. And considering that they're making it clear that this is just the first of many strikes, once again, folks, it does appear that our general analysis was correct, and it's been proven correct live on air. This was not a telegraphed attack to save face. This was an attack in its rawest form to try and strike and kill U.S. service members. And we're going to have to respond to it the way we have to respond to it. So if the Iranians don't like that, they shouldn't have shot back. That's the simple answer to it. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. It does appear that once again, the analysis on the channel largely has unfortunately been proven correct. But it does appear that there will be continuous escalation at this point happening inside of the Middle East. So we will wait to see how this goes here in the near future. But I have a feeling that the President of the United States is most likely going to be addressing the nation at some point here throughout the day at some time. And also, we'll largely start to see the continuation of U.S. military actions against Iran here in the very near future. And so with that, I hope that answers that well. I hope that also recaps to all of y'all what we just heard from the Iranian government. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat here is going to go to Invictus, who puts in a $50 donation. And thank you very much, Invictus, as well, for that support. And we do appreciate that. They said, cool resource for geolocations at GeoConfirmed. And thank you for your always honest and intelligent reportings.
Hey, and I thank you so much for enjoying our honest and intelligent reportings. We try our best here to make sure that our information is the best researched and corroborated, at least as much as we can. And I got to thank you so much for enjoying our coverage, and also thank you for enjoying the geolocation. I got to say that there are a lot of folks who help us out there in the open source intelligence communities with the geolocation, especially Phytux Network. Recently, they've been a massive help for us here on the channel, along with other sources as well. But I got to give them all a massive shout out, because if it wasn't for all of those folks who were out there doing that geolocation in detail, we wouldn't be able to show you all the exact locations where things are happening sometimes. But we also do some geolocation in-house. So some of it's geolocated by me, some of it's geolocated by the open source intelligence groups on Twitter that we're also talking to on a pretty regular basis at this point. And I got to say that they do amazing work. I've once again got to give them all a huge shout out. It's amazing stuff. And I got to say, I thank you so much for the kind words and the support. It's great to know that people do enjoy this channel, because we put a lot of time and effort into putting this news together every day. I'm not even kidding with y'all. We covered the news from yesterday on that stream. We rounded that stream out, stayed up for about an hour, well, actually a couple of hours after that, attending to some other stuff. Then we went to sleep, and I'm not kidding. We ran the stream about 20 minutes after waking up, because we woke up and heard that there was something about to happen. There was missile movements happening, and then we heard about, I believe it was 10 minutes later, that there was actually a missile attack being conducted against U.S. forces in Qatar, and then we got on air about 10 minutes later. So we were actually we were on air within 10 minutes of the original news coming out. So we generally try our best to pretty much be at this 24/7. We literally put life on hold whenever anything with major news happens, because we want to make sure to be on air and gain to cover with all of y'all. And I also got to say, that's great to know that last night we also were able to raise a little over, it was like $3.3 thousand for the USO, which will currently be helping out U.S. forces overseas. This is quite sure that we're going to be there for some time, probably at this point, whether we wanted to be or not, because now the Iranians are deciding to start acting like idiots. So we will most likely be there for a good time. And it's great to know the Lee Spring Army raised a whopping nearly $1.6 million over its entire history in support of nonprofits that have been helping out American and Western interests around the world. I've got to thank you so much once again for the support, and once again, we greatly appreciate the kind words, because there are always a whole bunch of bitter, angry people out there who always want to try and say the nastiest stuff to us while we're out here doing more than most of these people have done their entire lives. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so moving on here to our next super chat. This one goes to Nay Rojas, who puts in a 50. And thank you very much, Nay, for that support. He said, awesome reporting during the crisis.
And thank you so much for enjoying our reporting. We wish that we had great news to cover. Of course, today it was actually great news in the large part. No U.S. service members were wounded or killed, and we didn't lose any vital equipment within the region. So that was a pretty good part of the news. But I do have to thank you all so much for enjoying our commitment to the coverage of news, and also making sure that it's coming out pretty much live as it's breaking, because we are massively appreciative of folks who enjoy a good bit of news. And I'd have to say that the numbers are certainly showing that a lot of people are starting to find the Enforcer channel to be their primary source of news on global, rapidly developing world events. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a $20 super chat from Rob. And thank you, Rob, for the support. He said, thanks for being on the ball. And legacy media has quit trying to know anything, not spoon-fed by the powerful. And also, Rob, the mainstream media, some of the individuals that are like editors for magazines, they got bad butthurt the other day when the OSINT source was reposted by the president. They started attacking the guy for it. Some editors from some really notable newspapers started attacking the guy for it. And the mainstream people, they're like the gatekeepers of like news or something. And they don't even realize at this point that the reason why people are not watching their channels anymore, these mainstream channels, is because they simply don't cover the news effectively. They get too deep into politics. They don't cover the news like they used to. And that's why most people, according to the polls and stats these days, get their news from people like us instead of getting their news from these elitist gatekeepers that call themselves mainstream news. It's really just a joke, and they're arrogant as hell about it. Super arrogant, and they want to make sure that they're the only ones who are the credible, and I put air quotes, credible people to report the news, when most people don't even view them as credible anymore. But Enforcer, what say you?
Yeah, I would have to agree with Matthew on that. The mainstream news is absolutely abysmal with the rate and speed at which they are able to cover news and the information that they provide. It's absolutely pitiful. It's something that is quite interesting because I actually got into an argument with someone that I actually knew who apparently is a little bit bitter about us running this show and running this news. That apparently the mainstream news is the only people who actually know the news and we don't. I was a little bit interested with that because I've actually known that person for a couple of years. But it's always interesting to see some people try and cling on to the idea that the mainstream news is the only credible news source in America. When the fact of the matter is that we usually cover things, at least here on this channel, about 24 to 48 hours in advance before the mainstream news even gets the information or covers it. We've been doing a great job, and I'd have to say that the numbers speak for themselves here on the channel, as we've gained about 120,000 subscribers here over the past 2 weeks covering this news alone here in the Middle East just in itself, and also about 15 million people, or about 17 million people as of today, have watched the channel over the past 28 days. So I'd say that the numbers are generally speaking for themselves these days, that the news is here. It's not on the mainstream news anymore, and the mainstream news just can't compete. But with that, a big thanks to you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible, and we wouldn't be able to give the mainstream news a run for their money. So a massive thanks to you once again, and with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Paul Weekly, who puts in a 20. And Paul said, supporting the channel and thank you.
And a big thanks to you for the support, and thank you for enjoying this channel and supporting it. And we're going to grab another one.
And our next one here is another $20 super chat from Bigsby. And he said, I got home from work earlier today and just want to say I watch you guys daily and I recommend you guys to everybody I know. And good job and keep up the work.
Hey, and a big thank you to you for the kind words, and thank you for recommending us to all the folks you know. We try our best to make sure that our news is some of the most well researched out there, or at least best informed. And I hope that we're able to meet that criteria every day. We can't do it on everything. We're not, we're not the all-seeing eye or the Oracle of Delphi or anything like that. We're certainly not that. But I do thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible, and we wouldn't be able to make it a reality every single day. So big thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here is going to be a $20 super chat from Bob Jones II. And Bob said, I'm starting to think that the U.S.-Iran conflict is show theater, and if this attack on the bases does not result in a massive U.S. bombing campaign, then there's just simply too much pre-notification, which is fishy.
I would say most likely not, considering that the Iranian government is already signaling that they're going to be continuing attacks against the United States. It doesn't really appear that this is for show. It appears that for some reason they just pre-notified us, but the attack actually had the intent of hitting that base, and they'll most likely be attacking and attempting to hit other bases here in the future throughout the region, also including their proxy forces. So I would have to say that while it seemed for a moment like it may have possibly been theater, that Iranian statement disproved any idea, at least at that time, that it was any sort of an attempt at diplomatic or international military theater. And so with that, a big thanks to you once again for the support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so moving on here to our next one. Also, let's see here. I'm trying to see. There might be some breaking news here. Give me just a second. Let's see. So I just want to reiterate one more time that apparently Iran is still doubling down. I'm still reading off our last post here and trying to get some more information. They're still doubling down the fact that they're going to continue retaliating against U.S. bases. That's just wild to me, and I'm currently trying to find some more information. But in the meantime, though, I'll move on to our next super chat, which this one is going to go to Sam1234, who puts in a 20. And Sam said, but of course, the chat is filled with experts, and a lot of these other experts are contradicting each other. It's priceless, and LOL.
Thank you for the support. There are actually a decent amount of experts that we have here in the chat. We have all kinds of experts of different types, and a lot of them have helped me to know the information that I know over the years, like Walter E. Lakota, who we call our OG Ellison Bosun here on the channel, because he is pretty much our maritime and naval expert. Through and through. If you have a question about anything dealing with ships, Walter E. Lakota has the answer. Like, it is the verifiable correct answer. We also have experts in practically every other field that we talk to, not only here, but we also talk to some of the folks who are experts on the mainstream news channels, some from time to time. We don't get to talk to them often, but every once in a while, some people from, CNN or Fox, they actually chit chat with us at least a little bit. So it's a little bit interesting with that. We kind of get to talk to literally anyone and everyone. Hell, at one point, funnily enough, we actually had one news organization reach out to us and try and have us quoted in one of their news articles as missile experts. I'm not
Yeah, I
even
remember
kidding.
that. I remember that back in the day. I was tweeting on Twitter, and I think it was a lower level Reuters reporter had reached out to me and said, "Hey, sir, would you mind being like our missile expert that we could quote in an article?" And I was like, well, I'm not really a missile expert per se. I have a working knowledge of it, but I'm not a missile expert. And they're like, okay, let's run this up the chain of command. I think after they realized, okay, he's not a missile expert. He just comes across as a missile expert. Then they're like, okay, I think we're gonna have to find a real missile expert. And I was like, okay, that's probably honestly better, because I'm like, if you're asking me about the internals of the missile, I'm not gonna be able to answer your questions on that, because that's above my pay grade. But yeah, that was hilarious when they did that.
Yeah, we were both like, man, it was like it's a high honor that they would even say that we could be missile experts. Was like we're certainly not experts on missiles. I mean, we don't work for Lockheed Martin or Boeing or anything like that. So I hope that does address that well. Very big thanks to you for the support, though, and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, and we wouldn't have been able to make this kind of coverage possible for this long. But a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And also, apparently, there's actually an F-15 that has shown up in Qatar on flight radar. Let me go try and take a look at that, because we may actually be able to see it with its transponder on. So let's take a look. At the moment, that appears to be misinformation. Someone saying that there is an F-15 that is visible at Qatar's airport on flight radar. And I just zoomed into Qatar's airport, and there is only one commercial airplane, Qatar flight QTR-9P, that is currently showing up at the moment at the Qatar International Airport. So it does not appear that there's an F-15 on flight radar. Thank you for trying to tip us
And the
off
F
to that.
an F-15 doesn't have ADS-B transponders on board, does it? Like, it would never show up on flight radar.
I don't think it does, actually.
Yeah, I don't think it does. I don't think there's any like fighter jet aircraft that would typically show up on flight radar. This is for commercial aircraft primarily.
Yeah, no, there are some stratotankers and such, all those aircraft, strategic airlift aircraft that do have transponders, but at least in our experience, we've never seen an actual F-15 or an F-16 or any other military aircraft for that matter ever show up on flight radar. Like, because they apparently most of them do not have transponders, and if they do, they're never turned on. So with that, I hope that does address that the best we can, at least the best we have at the moment. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, I see people saying they do have ADS-B on board, but they turn it off. And maybe they have it on board. Let me double check that real quick. Let's see. Do F-15s have ADS-B, which is typically what flight radar tracks? So yeah, the people in the chat are correct. The F-15s are equipped with an ADS-B broadcast transponder, but typically they're turned off. That's typically what the mode is. So that's why we typically don't see them on flight radar. But if they temporarily turn it on, you will be able to spot it, or at least in theory, you can spot it on flight radar. But we don't see it here on the map, so it's not there. And typically, we don't see them on ADS-B. But jumping into our next super chat here, this one goes to Bazinga X. Oh, actually, yeah, this one goes to Bazinga X once again, who puts in a 20. They said, by the way, the B2 does not have thrust reversers. Those are low-speed air intakes.
Interesting. I thank you for sharing that, because it looked to me like they were reverse thrusters. Like, for example, let me go, let's see, reverse thrusters. Let me see if I can show these, at least on a modern turbofan engine. They look just like that. You see how the reverse thrusters deploy out of the side of the engine? And I actually thought that for some reason I had never known that the B2 had reverse thrusters, and that's what they were. But if you're saying that they're low-speed air intakes, I would suppose they must be low-speed air intakes, at least at the moment. But a big thanks to you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep it running and sharing that information with us. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it running, and we wouldn't be able to get that kind of information right here. But still, a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that the best I can, at least about the jet engines. And a big thanks to you once again for the massive support and helping this channel to keep running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Arlo Ponders, who just threw in a massive $500
Holy
donation, literally
smokes.
the maximum super chat you can throw in on the channel. That's the YouTube limit right there. And thank you very much, Arlo, for that massive support. And of course, that helps to keep the channel running a ton, and we do appreciate that. And Arlo said, "You are the news, and looking forward to your own 24/7 news channel on YouTube TV."
Hey, and I thank you so much for that massive, huge, insanely large, massive super chat, Arlo Ponders. I got to thank you so much for enjoying our channel and supporting it that much. You're helping us to keep this thing rolling day in and day out. And I got to thank you for saying that we are the news. We try our best, and I'm glad to know that we have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who look to this channel to be their primary source of news for any given day on any given topic happening around the world in foreign policy or war at the moment. And I got to thank you so much for enjoying our channel enough to hope that we would have a 24/7 YouTube TV news coverage, which would be quite interesting to see. I actually think that would be a very interesting kind of a thing for us to actually have, is to have that kind of news coverage, 24/7 sort of a show. It's just that the issue is that in my personal opinion, Arlo, I don't really think there is enough news per se for a 24/7 kind of a news show like CNN or Fox does. I just don't really see it too much because when we do the news, I compile most things on a 24-hour cycle, and we can usually knock out a 24-hour cycle of news with about as much analysis and detail as possible in maybe about 2 hours on most days, maybe 2.5 hours on really long days. And I always think that it's not really about the quantity of the news, is more so about the quality of the news that we're able to put out. And so I always make sure to put that in mind more so than anything else, is that if we're putting out news, it doesn't even matter if it's just a few hours and that's summarizing the whole day. It has to be just the highest quality possible. But we have been talking about behind the scenes, Matthew and me, because the channel is actually growing so large so fast. It's getting harder for Matthew and me to be able to manage and operate the channel as it is right now. There is the possibility that we are going to be bringing on staff here in the future to help us out with our news channel operations and actually be able to make this kind of news possible on an even grander, better, and greater scale than we've already done over the past few years. So it is highly likely that there may be some sort of a larger enforcer news network that is going to be growing out of this channel beyond the enforcer news that y'all are already seeing. But I got to thank you incredibly for your support, Arlo, because if it wasn't for folks like you who threw in unbelievably massive support, we wouldn't be able to see it to the day that eventually this channel will become a major competitor in the mainstream itself, and hopefully setting a new standard for what mainstream news actually does look like. So a massive thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it running. So a huge thanks to you so much once again, and with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Schmoopy, who puts in a $100 donation. And thank you very much, Schmoopy, for that support. That's also massive as well. And we do appreciate that very much. And Schmoopy said, "This community is filled with positive, decent people, and we see the hard work you're doing, and it's most appreciated. And the haters can either rise up or GTFO and bless our troops and LSA."
And a massive thanks to you so much for the support, Schmoopy, and helping the channel to keep on running. And thank you for the kind words. There are a lot of amazing folks here in the channel. We have folks of every single walk of life who are on this channel: firefighters, police officers, currently serving, veterans, race car drivers, literal rocket scientists, physicists, some of the largest law firms in America, or some of the largest, at least within their area, actually do also watch this show as well. We have foreign ministers, we have people from the government who watch, we have former generals, retired generals, currently serving generals, just about literally everyone in the world that we could think of that holds any kind of an occupation or a job. And of course, I cannot forget those people who are making up the very bulk of the sort of frontline work that you see every day: the janitors, the bakers, the fast food workers, all of those folks as well. Everyone of every type watches this channel. We are absolutely honored and appreciative to know that so many people watch this channel. If you would like to put in who you are in the chat right now, whether you're a farmer, a physicist, a rocket scientist, whatever, let us know. I'm always interested to see what kind of folks are watching our channel right now. Beyond beyond that, I've got to thank everyone massively for enjoying this channel and being a part of our community, because not only do we get to cover the news in the live chat, I usually see an amazing group of people with a broad, varying abilities of talents, capabilities, and knowledge on different subjects that actually are well enough informed that y'all usually get to correct us on a couple of things that we get wrong on air from time to time, because y'all are actual subject matter experts on those specific topics. And I got to thank you so much for being one of those folks, Smoopy, who's been supporting this channel and helping it to keep on running, so we can make sure to keep this amazing channel alive and to keep it running, so that way all of these amazing folks of different types, and actually everyone in here saying all kinds of stuff. Someone said Amazon delivery driver, firefighter retired, a salesman, a welder, there's a load, social worker, a neurologist. There are a load of different kinds of people who watch this channel, and a lot of people actually who are currently serving in the military. And I got to thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we would have never been able to make this thing a reality, for all these folks to be here, and we would have never been able to make it a reality for this to be our full-time job, getting to cover the news. So a massive thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well, and of course, long live the Lee Spring Army, and the Lee Spring Army will never die. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, we do have a little bit of news right now that is coming out. So we're hearing, this is a statement. Apparently, Jim Cramer said this, according to Unusual Whales on Twitter. Jim Cramer is a fellow on CNBC News who watches stocks. Some people have varied opinions about him, but this is what he said. He said the stock market's actually going higher after the U.S. bombed Iran. So the oil prices are plummeting. The oil prices appear to be down 7% after the attack. The stock market is going higher in the United States after the attack. We're living in an alternative universe right now. I'm not really sure why that is. I know some people are coming up with explanations for it, and some people are saying, well, obviously you just don't understand. There are people that's been watching the stock market and oil prices for decades that are having a hard time comprehending this. So I know I'm not the only one thinking it. So I'm not really sure what to make about that. I'm just going to have to leave it at that, because I'm really kind of at a loss.
Is this the first time ever in history that war has actually been good for the economy?
It might be the first time in history that maybe the United States government is propping up its own supplies or something, or its own stocks. I don't really know. I'm just kind of speculating right now, because it makes such little sense that it makes me want to delve into conspiracy theories almost. It makes so little sense.
I really don't know what to make of it either. I don't know how to make sense of this stuff. It's very confusing, that I will say. So we will have to see what is coming up at this, like, at least economically. It's really doing something that we did not expect at the moment. So with that, we hope we were able to at least talk about that well for a moment, and also want to read off a couple of the other interesting occupations that people have thrown in. A lot of people are actually veterans. One Plexus Gamer is actually a landscaper. One fella is an antique dealer and a trader. One other guy is a retired firefighter and a U.S. Navy vet. Thank you for your service in both the civil and military aspect. One fella is a veteran in a postal service carrier. One other guy, he is actually here. Let's see. The chat was going crazy. Let's see, there was a lot of people saying stuff about the stock market at the same time. One fella is a diesel mechanic. And I got to say, big thanks to all of y'all for watching. And we always like to say here on the channel that no matter what job you fill, whether it be a janitor or a stock trader on Wall Street or an executive of one of the major multi-billion-dollar companies in this country, every single person in this country holds a specific purpose and is one of the cogs in this giant, amazing machine that makes up this country, that makes it possible every single day. We respect you all, no matter what occupation or position that you hold, for continuously working at your job and helping to make this country possible in your very own way. Don't ever feel, no matter what job you hold, that it's just this measly job. Every single job has its purpose. Even fast food workers, which are usually looked down upon, feed the hundreds of millions of people in this country, mostly every day, the food that they need to be able to get the energy and the strength to be able to go to work and do their jobs. Everyone has their purpose in this country, and I got to thank you all so much once again for being an amazing part of it, both here in America and around the world and the rest of the Western sphere, where all of our allies are, for continuously being a part of your nation and helping to continue to keep the cogs and gears grinding that allows for the flag of the United States of America to be raised high over the lands every day, and for the United States of America to continue to survive in this crazy world that we find ourselves in these days. And so with that, I hope that addresses that well, and we are on to the next one.
All right. And real quick, Enforcer, go to the Twitter page. I want to show a B2 photo right now that is probably the hardest B2 photo in history that I've ever seen in my life that was taken from this Operation Midnight Hammer. Let's go there real quick. It's the top post at
Oh,
the very top of the
look at
Twitter.
that.
There it is. The hardest B2 photo you've ever seen right there. That is like one for the history books. That is from the Midnight Hammer operation. That's them taking off from Whiteman at night.
And I have to say that is quite an interesting thing right there. Beautiful looking. That's also going hard as well. I'm not gonna lie. That goes pretty hard too. Uh, this one's all right. That one's just kind of normal. But these two go hard. Man, the Department of Defense is out here cooking, man. Next thing you know, they're gonna put up a picture of the president with like those glowing red laser beam eyes. And probably say something like everything's going to plan or as we drew it up or something like that, like remember that, Matthew?
Yeah, I tell you what, it's just so good. Like these photos are just so good. I like both of them. I like the green one when in the hangar. That looks ominous. And I like the one taken off here. That's just crazy looking.
Oh, it's absolutely crazy. It's really neat. Really cool, I'd actually say. Man, a plane spotter, if they got this picture, they wouldn't ever live that high down the rest of their lives, man. They would be showing this picture to everyone for the rest of their lives saying that they took it. If it was a photographer in the Department of Defense or the Air Force that took this, probably, what would it be, Matthew? Like the S6 or something like that, who's a public relations officer or whatever, and they would be the ones who at
I
least
think
be in
so.
charge of taking these kinds of pictures and stuff. It was probably someone like that at Whiteman Air Force Base that did that, so big shout out to them. They got some amazingly good pictures to commemorate Operation Midnight Hammer. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And we're on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to IT Burns, one IP, who puts in a $50 donation. And thank you very much, good sir, for that support. He said, I found this channel accidentally, and what a great find. I think your military background helps with the no BS style delivery, mechanical engineer. Also, by the way, we are not military, by the way. We have never served in the military. And that's just, we only have a political science background and a history background, and everything else is self-taught. So thank you for thinking we're military, but we're actually not. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I'd have to say, thank you very much for the praise of saying that it sounds like we have a military background, but we do not have a military background. It just happens to be so that I read books a lot, and I read a lot of books on how modern military equipment works, how modern tactics work, read the ATPs on how the Chinese fight, how the Russians fight, so on and so forth. So generally, while I'm not in the military, I pretty much read the military's literature on how stuff works in the modern day, or other people's literature, former military, that wrote and explained how things worked during their time and how things work today. I do thank you for that massive compliment, though, of thinking that we had a military background, but we have not served in the military once in our lives, not even for a single day. But I do have to massively thank you for enjoying this channel and finding it to be a great find. We try our best to make sure that our information is well researched and covered here, and it's wonderful thing to know that folks like you are supporting this channel and helping it to keep running, so that we can make sure to keep this thing rolling and to keep the news coming out every day. Also, by the way, I gotta thank you for being a mechanical engineer and also filling an important role here in this country as far as mechanical engineering is concerned. So a massive thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And also, folks, I think I ought to drop a little bombshell on y'all here, just, the full disclosure sort of a thing for all of y'all. Me and Enforcer Matt are not too old. I know that we sound like we're probably in our 30s or 40s to many people, but actually Enforcer Matt and me are in our mid-20s. I'm 23, he's 20, he's soon to be 25, very soon to be 25, but he's actually 24 at the moment. So we are actually the younger bucks out here in the news coverage field, at least for the moment. So if you've been enjoying the stream so far, hey, at least you know that the next generation of Americans, at least some of us, are well-informed and well-knowledged, at least on our topics, and are able to do a good job and crack on at it. So with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well, but a big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we would have never been able to make this thing possible and keep this news running. So a big thanks to you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
All right. So our next one here goes to Bazinga X. Also, some people were saying, mentioning that we were in JRTC. Like, I didn't mention that because that's obviously not military service. That's the Junior Reserve Officers Training Course
That's
for
just
like
some
students.
high school class thing.
Yeah, it's basically what JRTC is. It's like it's like the sales funnel for the military. So they try to get high school kids to join it. It sort of teaches you some premises, or I guess you could say some principles about the military. But at least in my program that I was in, it was not really like a full-on military program. We obviously did marching. You learned about rank structure and things like that, but it's obviously not the real military. Like it's just not. It comes close to it. You get a taste of it, but it's just not quite there. So that's obviously not military service. But yes, we were in JROTC. Both of us were at some point. But also, moving on to our next one here. This one goes to Bazinga X, who puts in a 20. He said, by the way, the B2 does not have thrust reversers, and those are low-speed air intakes.
And thank you so much for support. That's the second time I was actually corrected on that, because I actually thought for a second, because I haven't heard about the low air intakes. I actually do know that the Russians have something similar. They actually have what appears to be gills on the upper part of the fuselage body near to the air intakes, the underslung air intakes that actually can open for low speed or on the ground air intake, which is actually a pretty interesting feature on most Russian aircraft. But I did not know that the B-2 had something similar. That's actually quite interesting to know, and I got to thank everyone for correcting me on that, because I actually thought for a moment I was seeing reverse thrusters that I had never seen before, which I thought was just absolutely crazy. But a big thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it running. And so with that, a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that has addressed that well. And also someone said, LOLMAO bragging about ROTC. I'm not bragging about it. Honestly, it was kind of like, in my opinion, kind of a wasted class, because the only thing I learned in that class was that the people in there were assholes, like at least the other kids that we were in there with. So no, I wouldn't brag about it. It was just kind of a class that we did. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat here is a $20 support that came in from Average Juice Box. And thank you very much, Average Juice Box, for that support. And he said, has there been any official statements from China in regards to military aid to Iran, or are they taking the same stance as Russia?
It appears that the Chinese Foreign Ministry has really made no official statement or comment at the moment on the situation with Iran. So I'm believing that if the Chinese are doing anything, it's so under the radar, we really can't see what their official standing or positioning on it is. One thing we do know, however, is that the Chinese have supported Iranian proxy force actions throughout the region in the Middle East, so it wouldn't be unlikely to say that the Chinese are going to try and materially support Iran, although conventionally, there is absolutely no way in hell that the Chinese could directly militarily support the Iranians through force of arms. There is no way, no shot in hell that they could actually do that at the moment. And so with that, I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that well, at least the best we can at the moment. And a big thanks to you once again for helping this channel to keep on rolling. And also, let's see here. I see some people. Someone said, yeah, they were uptight. Yeah, like, just to really quickly talk about the JROTC stuff, there's like the whole like stereotype of like you're insulting a future army soldier thing was like kind of true for us in there. Like a lot of people took it way too seriously to the point they would get in fights over nothing. And so generally I found most of my time in the JROTC in high school to be one where I'll be honest with y'all, it actually took me from, wow, I want to be an officer in the army as an artillery officer. That was my dream back then to do. After being in JROTC for 3 years, I was like, if these are the people that are getting in the military, I think I'd pass. Like, that's generally what I got to after 3 years. And then it didn't even matter, because by that third year, it turns out that I actually had double major scoliosis. And then every recruiter treated me like I had leprosy, so I couldn't even join anyways. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well, at least the best I can. I know some people are going to say, you could have wavered in. They told me it wasn't even waverable. They just told me, get lost, you're pretty much damaged goods. We don't even want to talk to you. That's pretty much what the recruiters told me at that point, so I just went with it. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Run EXE, who puts in a 20. And he said, do you guys think that Israel held back the intel from a few days prior of the trucks outside the enrichment site for the United States just to ensure we got involved? And either way, Iran's enrichment capability needed to be taken out. Now, that's a really good question, Run EXE. I thought that myself after we saw the Maxar footage coming out. But here's the catch, though. Israel didn't hold it back. That was Maxar satellite footage that the United States had access to. So I think the U.S. knew that they were doing something with the facility, but they wanted to go ahead and strike it anyway on their own accord. So I don't think Israel set us up to basically fail. I don't think that's the case. It looks like it if you don't have all the facts like in front of you, like for examination. But once you see all the facts and the Maxar footage and everything else, it looks like both Israel and the United States knew that the uranium was likely taken out. There was a chance it was there, but most likely it was already previously evacuated by the Iranians and taken to a different location. So to answer the question, I don't think we were set up by Israel. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say I don't believe that we were set up by Israel either, because it would be really hard to say that the United States, which has unlimited amounts compared to the Israelis of intelligence, satellite photography abilities, so on and so forth, was fooled into this by the Israelis. The like no disrespect to the Israelis, but their intelligence abilities are far below ours. Really everyone in the world is far below our abilities. Do the let me put it this way. The Israelis have a $50 billion annual military budget, and $25 billion of that annually is made up of U.S. direct military support. So their intelligence abilities or military abilities compared to ours are quite next to nothing. Like with that kind of a budget, it's not great. We have a nearly $1 trillion military budget currently. And not only that, we have a very significant budget for our intelligence forces as well, such as the CIA and so on. So I would say that in our abilities, we certainly are able to do far more than the Israelis in intelligence gathering and make our own decisions whether the Israelis want to share information or not. And I know that the Mossad, did the whole beeper thing, blasted the people with the beepers. And then, they came out and said the world is their stage and everything. But the Mossad goes out and shouts from the mountaintops that the world is their stage. The world is really the stage for our forces and the Department of Defense and the CIA, who only speak in mere whispers and can topple entire governments at whim if we wanted to. We've done it in the past. Damn well did it under Alan Dulles back in the day. I mean, we were going around toppling governments like it was just a fun hobby in the afternoon. And we could certainly do that today if we wanted to as well. It's just that the United States generally operates with our intelligence agencies a lot more benevolently these days, and you just don't really see them up front doing all of the heavy lifting or hard work anymore. But as far as it goes, I don't think the Israelis could have fooled us because we have enough of our own intelligence abilities and far more than the Israelis could ever have to get more intelligence than they could ever provide to make up our own decisions as a result. And so I got to thank you for the support, but I would say that the Israelis didn't dupe us or double cross us or trick us into doing something like this. We truly have the world class intelligence resources. No one's ever seen anything like it the world over in history so far, and I would think it'd be pretty hard to fool us or trick us into doing something when we have our own intelligence to work off of, and it's truly the best in the world. That's not just a bias, that's just truly the fact off of the budgeting. Our intelligence forces in the military get more money than the next 8 militaries in the world combined. So it would be pretty hard to outdo them. But a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat goes to Illuminati Prince, who puts in a 20. And he said, a farmer and a tractor currently, and take a live chat question in LSA.
Hey, and that's actually pretty cool to hear that you are actually a farmer in a tractor right now. The farmers are here watching the show. And I got to say, a big shout out to all of y'all. Y'all only make up 1% of the population of the United States these days, farmers do. They make up about 3 million people in this country, or about 3.3 million. And they actually produce all of the food that is generally eaten in this country every day. I got to thank y'all so much for doing the hard work out there of feeding this great country. And it's good to hear that you're at work right now listening to this show. And I got to thank you massively for the support once again and helping this channel to keep on running. Illuminati Prince, and we will make sure to take a live chat in your honor. And so, what do we got, Matthew?
And the live chat question goes to Miss Disa, who said, "What shelter does Qatar have for civilians?"
I'm not entirely sure, actually. I don't really know if they have any bunkers or hardened shelters even, but I would assume, considering that they're in the Middle East, and the Middle East is generally unstable, that there's some sort of public shelters somewhere, but I generally have to declare ignorance on that, because I don't know the details about any sort of civil defense programs that the Qatari government may have initiated that would have created any kind of public or private shelters. But a big thanks to you for the support in sponsoring a live chat and helping this channel to keep on running, Prince, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to, 1, feed the country, and 2, answer great live chats. And so a huge thanks to you once again, and we're on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here is going to go to Sully Canuck, who puts in the 20. And Sully said, despite some current differences of opinion between our two countries, I will always back our neighbor and ally in these situations, the United States. And I served alongside my U.S. counterparts, and we've always worked well together in LSA.
And LSA, and I got to thank you for being one of our Canadian viewers, Sully Canuck, and I got to thank you massively for enjoying this channel, and I'd have to agree. The United States of America has always been the cornerstone of this modern Western world since the end of World War II, and I think that it's important that we all remember that while we have some differences from time to time here between us all in this alliance, it is important for us to remain united together and to go up against those untold futures that are out there at the moment. We don't know what the future may bring for the Western Alliance, but we should face it all together and be able to go headlong into it, stronger together than weaker apart. And so a big thanks to you for the support once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we would have never been able to make this channel possible and keep it running. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Nefarious Technology, who puts in a 20. And they said even Bitcoin in the crypto market, which took a nosedive when U.S. bombed Iran, has spiked since Iran hit U.S. bases. And it creates confusion in the market for sure. And everything's propped up by the same people now. And thank you for your coverage.
It is interesting. It is interesting to note that that's happening everywhere. I don't know why. It's actually a little bit confusing to me. It sounded like there could have been some stock market fallout. I mean, maybe that's why the Iranians waited till Monday, because we struck on Saturday, so that way the stock market would be closed. They struck on Monday near to the morning of the opening of the stock market, and it looks like it actually had the reverse effect. So I'm very confused at the moment as to how that works. But a big thanks to you once again, and we are on to the next one. Also, Jason Page just brought up that the statements that I said right there were pretty much almost the lyrics of the LSA anthem, which I didn't really think of, Matthew, when I was saying it until he just said it right there, and I was like, oh crap, I actually did say Untold Futures, which is pretty much the futures untold and the futures unknown of the LSA anthem. It pretty much is, but that's what the anthem was actually written about. It's just pretty much being written about being united in the face of an uncertain future and difficult times. Like, that's literally what the entire LSA anthem is. Like, if you listen to the lyrics, if you ever listen to the one that had the choir in it, that was literally the lyrics of the LSA anthem. Was just speaking about being united in the face of untold adversity in the future, and beyond. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. Good catch right there. I didn't actually catch that. I said that myself until you brought it up. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here is going to go to Griffin Provenzano, who's a longtime channel legend, and just throwing a massive $100 donation. And thank you very much, Griffin, as well, for that massive support. He said, LSA, and I missed the news segment. Can I get a 5-minute overview of the big happenings?
Yes. Generally, the major happening of right now is that the Islamic Republic of Iran conducted Operation Fata's Promise, launching around 10 ballistic missiles, at least at a minimum at this point, at the Al-Udeid airbase inside of Qatar. 9 of those missiles were shot down. 1 did hit the airbase within an area with no personnel, equipment, or buildings inside of it, causing no real discernible damage, at least at the base. And at the moment, we are now hearing that the Iranians have vowed that they are going to be conducting more strikes against the U.S. forces in the area until U.S. and Israeli strikes against Iran stop. Pretty much meaning that it's now a full state of war, with the Iranians firing back in response to the U.S. and Israeli attacks that have occurred prior on the Iranians in an attempt to denuclearize their country. That is pretty much all of the news that we had as we went live today. And I got to thank you massively for the support, Griffin Provenzano, and supporting this channel and helping it to keep running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we would have never been able to make this in reality. And we got to thank you for massively supporting this channel and helping it to keep running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we would have never been able to make this thing possible. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, by the way, I am seeing the Eurofighter right now at the Qatari International Airport. It is actually popping up on flight radar. It's number 2 tracked worldwide right now. It's a Eurofighter Typhoon FGR-4, and it's being operated by the Emiri Air Force in Qatar. So it is appearing to be taxiing next to the runway here, perhaps, and maybe it's coming back in. It just disappeared from flight radar right this second. So it is now off the radar. So very interesting.
It actually appears that it was taxiing to go take off, because it actually was taxiing from somewhere around here, and it looked like it got onto the taxiway and was moving further down this runway here. So it may actually be preparing to take off. I can't say that for certain at the moment, folks, and once again, we don't really know. But still, that was interesting to see that a Eurofighter did pop up for just a short moment. And we can also see here that aircraft has now disappeared. That was the one being tracked by many. We can also see the Qatari flight is also being tracked by many. And we can also see that this C-130 Hercules, apparently, of the U.S. Air Force, may also be in the area, which is being tracked. So, a little bit interesting. What else do we have? So then we have a 737. Don't know whose that is. It doesn't really give a lot of information. We also have this aircraft here. Let's see. There's a lot of these being tracked in the area currently. We also have the Saab in the area, the Saab 2000, which is actually an AWACS aircraft, interestingly enough. And let's see here. And then we have this. Embraer 145 that did a very odd pattern over Beersheba and then immediately started jetting down straight to the port of Eilat. So very interesting air developments in the area currently, but that Eurofighter was there for a moment and now it's quickly disappeared. And I believe that's also what happened to the F-15 earlier, folks, is that when I got on flight radar, it already disappeared by that time. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat here is going to go to Canada is Sovereign, who puts in a $28 donation, and thank you very much, Canada is Sovereign, for that support. They said, Matt, what's happening today sounds like a paper by the Brookings Institution. Which path to Persia? Options for a new American strategy toward Iran, and you may be interested in their geopolitical research and policy papers. And I will say, Canada is Sovereign, I've read a couple of things from the Brookings Institute. They generally have some pretty good analysis, but I usually try to form my own analysis first. And then after I do that, I might go maybe review a couple of things that the other geopolitical analysts are saying. But generally, I try to come up with my own first because I don't want to be tainted by other people's opinions and then, weave theirs into mine because that might taint what I'm thinking. And of course, we want to be original with our analysis. But I have seen them before, and they're a pretty good source. So thank you for pointing that out to me as well. And thank you very much for that support also. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to agree. I thank you for the idea, or at least the recommendation. But generally, here on the channel, I actually never read anyone else's analysis of things because I generally, like Matthew was saying, I generally like to come up with my own analysis of the situation, so that way we were actually coming up with something original. Because I don't like to. Like a lot of the channels out there on YouTube, they like to copy other people's work to a T. So they'll just go and read like a New York Times article or The Economist or something like that, and then just come up with their opinion, which is literally The Economist or the New York Times opinion. Here on the channel, we like to come up with our own. So we'll hear something happening, like Iran fired missiles at Qatar, and then we come up with all of our own analysis beyond that, and we don't really reference anyone else's analysis because I think that that's being unoriginal and uninspired and non-creative, at least with our analysis at that point. Because news coverage is news coverage. If something happened or a government official made a statement, and it was made to New York Times, then it was made to the New York Times, but we have to get that government statement, so we source it from the New York Times. But as far as all of the analysis and additional information of what's going to be happening in the future goes, we do all of that here. And I'm generally pretty happy with doing that, not to say, like, not like putting down the idea, but I'm really happy with doing that just to explain why I like to do it that way. It's because we usually make analysis that no one else makes, and generally that's the analysis that ends up being correct. Like, for example, when we said that the Iranians were going to get hit over the weekend, we were pretty much the only people that I heard of that were actually making any kind of a clear statement when the Iranians were going to get hit soon and why they were going to get hit soon. And it lined up exactly as to why. The stock market was going to be closed. It was the right time. The bombers would be able to fly over and fly back. The entire operation could be done before the stock market reopens. That was an incredibly sound sort of an analysis to make. Matthew really was the one who came up with the stock market analysis and idea. I was the one who generally said it was going to be happening over the weekend, but I said it for different reasons. Nevertheless, both of our analysis was sound, and it ended up being correct for both reasons. I mean, hell, we even got it down when the strike happened that there had to have been 12 to 16 GBU-57s dropped on Fordo to actually destroy it. And it turns out that while every other source, including CNN, was saying that it was 6 for several hours, it turns out that right when we were getting off of that stream that night, the Department of Defense actually put out that 12 GBU-57s were dropped on the Fordo, meaning that our original 12 to 16 range was accurate. So we generally like to stay with our own analysis, because if we go with others, it may be incorrect, because also some people, I'm not saying this to like disrespect everyone who does this, but some people who supposedly are analysts and experts out there that are the quote-unquote forerunners at some of these larger publications, I don't consider them to be experts. If you don't believe me, go check out one of their videos that CNN made on the Su-75 Checkmate, and the guy's analysis was that this is a modern plane because it looks sleek and clean. And that was his whole analysis, was just 4 minutes of him saying it's sleek and clean, so it must be advanced. And it wasn't even a flying aircraft. They hadn't even test flown the aircraft. It was literally a balsa wood mock-up. And I was like, this isn't really analysis. This is just, this is just conjecture. I wasn't really a big fan of that too much. So we generally like to do our own analysis. But I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep running. And I do thank you for the recommendation. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Danny Will on Fire Williams, who puts in a $25 donation. And thank you, Danny, as well for that $25 support. He said at first super chat and been watching a while. And I was in the TX Air National Guard for 7 years, contracted in Afghanistan for 18 months, and I've been in the oil field for 12 years. And I love the news you guys provide and keep up the good work. And LSA.
Hey, and LSA, and thank you so much for the support and enjoying this channel. You got quite a long legacy behind you there, and I got to thank you incredibly once again for the support. And I got to say that it is a wonderful thing to hear that you've actually been all over the world. Really, you've been with the Texas Air National Guard for 7 years. You've been in Afghanistan for 18 months and the oil fields for 12 years. I'm supposing back in Texas, and I got to thank you so much for enjoying this channel and supporting it. It's amazing to know that folks like you with amazing backgrounds like that enjoy this channel as we continue to cover the news every day. And of course, we'll be keeping up the good work. And of course, long live the Lee Spring Army, and the Lee Spring Army will never die. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 20 from Robert Hill. And Robert said, hey, brothers, and thank you so much. And I watch you every day. And thanks for all the accurate information. And I'm a news junkie. And you all kick butt. Awesomely awesome. And disabled retired locomotive engineer.
Hey, that's really cool, Robert Hill, and great to hear that we actually have some retired locomotive engineers in here. There's not really a lot of those around these days. The railroads have gotten really small in their employment lists. But beyond that, I got to thank you incredibly for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you for enjoying all of the accurate information that we put out. We try our best here, and it's good to know that a lot of people have a lot of kind things to say and a great deal of support that folks want to throw in that go out of their way to do so that way we can keep this thing running and keep the news a living reality. So big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And we're going to grab the next one.
And our next one goes to Howard Mendelson, who puts in a 20. And he said, I'm part of the very large LSA IT contingent. And did anybody actually see the satellite picture of the trucks in real time? And yes, we did, Howard. We actually have that photo. Wait a minute. Let me back up. He said in real time. Real time, that's questionable. We're really not sure. Of course, the USA does not publish every single capability that they have for reconnaissance, but we're really not sure if they saw it in real time. But we did see the Maxar footage about a day later of the trucks lined up at Fordo, and they appear to be going into the facility and then taking material out of some sort, which later turned out to be most likely some of the uranium that was taken out of that facility. So that's what we know. But Enforcer, what say you?
That's generally what we know as well. As far as getting that in real time, I'm sure that the U.S. Department of Defense had it in real time, but here in the public, we did not. So that may have also been why they moved forward with the program to hit Fordo, Operation Midnight Hammer, because they could have believed that they may have also been trying to transport critical centrifuges and other technology out of the facility in those trucks. So that may also be why we actually hit them at that time on the weekend. But with that, I thank you for the support. I hope that does answer your question well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a $20 support from Bert Frank II once again. And Bert said, yesterday I promoted myself from a USMC E5 to an LSA 05 on Patreon, supporting you guys, and you are the best news source.
And I got to thank you so much for the kind words and helping this channel to keep running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. And thank you for promoting yourself on the Enforcer Patreon. We massively thank everyone who is supporting us on Patreon. Y'all also help to make this channel possible every day with y'all support. Not only the super chatters, but the patrons do as well. And I got to thank you for promoting yourself and supporting us here on the channel through a super chat, because the folks like you who support this channel make this thing possible and help us to keep it running. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Melanie, who puts in a 14. And Melanie said, thank you for the fair coverage of Israel. You guys are amazing.
And thank you so much for enjoying the fair coverage. We have covered literally everything. That's why I know that people who come in here and say that our information is biased to Iran or Israel, they've got to have no brains, because we have literally covered everything. If there's a hit in Israel, we cover it. If there's a hit in Iran, we cover it. Just happens to be, much like Ukraine, the Iranians suck and they really don't land a lot of hits. So we don't really have much to cover from inside of Israel. But I do thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Melanie, because if it wasn't for folks like you who support this channel, we wouldn't be able to make sure that this news is factual, accurate, and well researched every day. So a massive thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a $12 super chat from Cheater Meter once again, who said, do you think it's possible that the Taliban could occupy eastern parts of Iran and if the regime collapses? And congrats on Saturday's stream, and my dad enjoyed the coverage.
Thank you so much for the support, Cheeto. Cheater Meter, I believe it is. But I gotta say, thank you so much for helping this channel to keep it running. And it's not possible for the Taliban to occupy Eastern Iran. The Taliban are actually involved fighting extremist sections of the Taliban right now. So it's kind of like after the Soviets left Afghanistan and the Taliban fought the Taliban, or the Mujahideen fought the Taliban, and then the Mujahideen kind of lost technically, and then the Taliban ended up running the country. It's kind of like that again right now, actually. So I think they're too tied up with domestic matters at the moment to actually be able to deal with that for now, at least. And they're having to deal with the situation that's going on inside their own country instead of trying to occupy eastern Iran or anything along those lines. So generally, Iran will maintain its current borders that it has at the moment right now. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, big shout out to Plazat for putting in an $11 donation, and Just Chillin' for putting in a 10 as well. And thank you both, Plazat and Just Chillin', for that support, and we appreciate that very much. We also have a $10 super chat that came in from Cheater Meter once again, and he said, "Do you think this will bring other Arab nations into the conflict, like where the bases were targeted?"
I think it may. I think we may actually see some limited involvement by the Qataris in the future on strikes in Iran, or that they pretty much just join the conflict in a defensive measure. I think that that's highly likely at this point. And I got to thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat is a $10 support from none other than Nightmare Before Christmas, who said, "Thank you for all the news and at a reasonable time these days, lol, and please take a question."
And I got to thank you so much for the support. And I got to say, thank you for enjoying the news. We are having to get out at pretty much every single time at any time these days, like we are right now, to get this news out to all of y'all. But we are massively appreciative and thankful to know that y'all enjoy this news and are, of course, supporting it to help us to keep this thing on air and rolling. So a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And that live chat question goes to Tort, who said, "Will the C-RAM be unable to shoot down Iranian missiles?"
Technically, the CRAM is actually designed to be able to shoot down missiles at closer ranges, but if a CRAM is being used, things are going very badly. The CRAM is not the first line of defense, it's actually the last line of defense. Say on a U.S. Vessel that uses a CWIS, which is a sea-based version of a CRAM, a missile that has gotten close enough for a CWIS or a CRAM to be used has gotten through the missile-based interceptors. It's also gotten through the flak guns on board the vessel, or the main guns, the 127 millimeter main guns, which are pretty much flak cannons at that point. And then it has made it within about 2 miles of the ship, 2 to 3 miles of the ship. And then that's when the CRAMs open fire, or the CWISs, at least as they're called at sea. So generally they can, it's just that they have to pretty much be about to hit the base for a CWIS or a CRAM to be used, either on a ship or on land at a base. And so a big thanks to you for the support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Phil Parisi, who puts in a 20. And thank you, Phil, as well, for that support. He said, "Dog care business owner, very left, and love your news. No spin, and thanks very much."
Hey, and I thank you so much for being a dog care business owner, another person in this great country who has an incredible job helping out the citizens of this republic to maintain their pets, a very important part of their mental stability that helps them to get to work and keep cracking at it every day. And I got to thank you so much for the support, and I got to thank you for enjoying that we put no spin on it and just report the news straight up as it is, as we're getting it. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 10 from Kitty, who said, "The countries in the Middle East are showing their deepert." Let's see here. I'm not sure what they meant to say there, but they're not verbalizing it over the airwaves. They're glad that the USA is taking care of the rogue country once and for all.
And I would have to agree. I'm glad to see that the Iranians are hopefully going to be dealt with once and for all, at least at this point. Kitty, I do thank you for the support and helping us to keep this thing rolling, because folks like you make this thing a reality. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Live Animal, who puts in a 10. And thank you, Live Animal, as well. They said the very reason that someone is deliberately dropping prices is why the impending oil crisis is imminent. And also, they want to create panic in bullish oil buyers so it offsets impending oil embargo.
Possibly so. That may actually be an explanation as to why the oil prices are doing what they're doing, which is dropping at the moment. But it's also interesting to see that everything else, the stock market, crypto, and so on, is also rising as well. But a big thanks to you for the support once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, a big shout out to Tom Scavino for putting in a $10 donation, and also Paul Smith for putting in a 10 as well. We appreciate the both of you for that support. We also have a 10 from Nade X, who said Erbil Air Base in Iraq is still safe. And based on what we know, it is still safe. It looks like the only air base that the officials are saying were reported was hit, or at least intercepted, was the one in Qatar. So it looks like that was the only base that was attacked, and there have been no confirmed impacts on that base and no casualties either. But Enforcer, what say you?
I got to thank you for the support, and it does appear that that base is safe at the moment, quite fortunately. And so with that, a big thanks to you once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one is a $10 support from Nightmare Before Christmas. He said, for the takeaway fund, and I hope the earlier streams are getting easier, and lots of questions from the chat, and take another.
And I got to thank you so much for support. The early streams are not necessarily getting easier. It's just that we're having to get used to doing them. Because doing them this early in the day is actually a little wild for us, because this is actually the time that a short war video was supposed to go out, and it didn't. So I guess there will be no short war video today, and this will pretty much just serve as the short war video and emergency stream for the day. Beyond that, though, I do thank you for support and helping this channel to keep it running, and also enjoying our news, because we try our best to put it out every day in the best, highest quality that we can. So a huge thanks to you once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to the live chat, by the way, goes to Tort, who said, what is the official definition of World War?
The official definition of World War is where we would have two clear powers, an allied or an axis power, fighting over the entirety of the surface of the planet until pretty much the war's completion, either nuclear annihilation or a total victory if that was ever achievable. So that's generally what a world war is, and right now the Ukraine war and the Iran-Israel war do not really count as world wars because they're completely separate from each other at the moment and really have no impact on the other. And they're also not a united front against the West. They're fighting against the West for different reasons, but they haven't allied themselves with each other yet. So I'd say that this generally is not a world war at the moment. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a $10 support from Tim W. And Tim said, recall that in 2020, Iran launched missiles at the U.S. base Al-Assad in Iraq. In reply, the U.S. killed General Soleimani, and the U.S. did not respond because no U.S. troops were killed.
Thank you for the support, and I think I do remember that situation, and I think you are actually correct. But on the other hand, this is a little bit of a different situation at the moment. We actually just got done bombing Iran's nuclear sites, and now the Iranians are saying that they're actually going to be conducting further attacks, not only this one, but other attacks against the United States. So I think the situation might be a little bit different. But we also have to remember that killing Soleimani was, well, I think actually you're proving the point that the United States response will be strong, because when we killed Soleimani was actually a general of the Iranian military that had shown up in Iraq at the international airport and got killed pretty much as soon as he arrived. So I would say that it's likely, it's possible at this point, that we could see that such a strong response happens again, probably far stronger than we would believe, at least at the moment. So a big thanks to you once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here is going to go to Michael Mervahill, who puts in a 10. He said, is it time to blockade Iran?
I would say so. I would believe that it would be about time to blockade the Iranians, especially at Bandar Abbas, and destroy the Iranian Navy while we have the chance before they close the Strait of Hormuz. And so thank you for the support. I hope that does address that well. And we're on to the next one.
And we got a 10 from Live Animal, who said, could Iran contaminate the Strait of Hormuz with the missing uranium?
Well, not necessarily. They would generally end up contaminating the Arabian Sea and the Persian Gulf as a whole, but the radioactive elements would be trace for the large part, considering that it's only 400 kilograms at its most, so I would say probably not. They probably wouldn't do that. They'll probably just end up mining the Strait of Hormuz instead, because that would be a lot more effective and achieve far more damage economically than just dropping the uranium into the sea would. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best we can, at least at the moment. And also, we are going to be putting a super chat cutoff into effect at this point. I do thank everyone so much for the massive support that y'all been throwing in, but we want to make sure that we're able to get to the remaining super chats that we have left at the moment, which there's still a large amount. And so if you throw in a super chat at this point, please do beware, folks. We will not be able to address any further super chats from this point. So if you throw in a super chat, we will not be able to individually thank you or speak about your super chat, because we have so many more to get through, and we want to make sure to be able to get to those and thank them for their support while we still have the time. I also have to say that we're still covering breaking news at the moment intermittently, but it does appear that there's been a slight lull in the news as the United States is now drafting up its response or actions that will happen after the Iranians are now vowing that they'll be continuing more strikes against U.S. bases. So there is a super chat cutoff in effect from this point forward. Generally in super chat cutoffs, folks, I do have to say I generally dissuade people from throwing in super chats. I think that if y'all are throwing in support, y'all should be able to get your questions answered. The unfortunate thing is, though, is that if we tried to do that right now, we would be here for probably 4 straight hours trying to answer super chats, and we're trying to find a way to be able to make this stream a little bit more short and sweet instead of about a 5 or 6 hour long stream and then hop on off air. So I would generally tell y'all, if y'all wanted to throw in a super chat at this point, I wouldn't throw one in. I'd wait until we're live tomorrow at some point and then throw it in then, because then we'll actually be able to get to your super chat and address it. But from this point on, right now, we will not be able to. We'll just be able to address the super chats that have come in so far. And so with that, I hope that addresses that the best we can, and we are on to the next one.
All right. And our next one here is going to go to EC, who puts in a $10 donation. And he said, my friend who loves aircraft mentioned some B-2 bombers also having 1 bed and room for a crew of 3. And I believe it after hearing about the length of the mission, but I'm not sure.
I actually do not know about that. I would have to believe it as well. Because those aircraft can go on insanely long missions. It's like, damn, it's like what was that? Like a 20-something hour
36 hours.
36 hours. Yeah, it was damn, man, that's as long as that train ride we took on the Coast Starlight from LA to Seattle. That's literally the same length. That was
a plane ride from hell, honestly. And it's loud. Like, it's loud in that B-2 cockpit. Like, I'm not sure if you've heard it, Enforcer, but it's like noisy as hell in there.
Oh, yeah, it's always noisy in those aircraft. They never make them with noise dampening in mind because it's the military. It's to screw them, you know? Like, that's pretty much the design philosophy. It's like, noise suppression? To hell with that. Just make it as loud as possible. So, I mean, that had to have been the plane ride from hell. I mean, dude, those guys came out, their heads were probably shaking. They probably looked like they had rickets from being just vibrated to hell and hearing that raucous noise from the engines for 36 hours. But beyond that, I'd have to say that there probably is a bed in there because they would have had to have had some sort of a pilot rotation at some point where they had a pilot and co-pilot, at the joystick for the large part, while another pilot was getting some rest. So that way they could pretty much just rotate them out one after the other throughout the whole mission. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. A big thanks to you once again, and we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Live Animal, who puts in a 10. They said any amount of oil surplus is pointless if that oil can't be shipped around the economically viable corridors.
That's what I'm thinking. That's why I was thinking that the oil prices would start to rise. But then again, they haven't closed the Strait of Hormuz, and at least for now, for some reason, the prices are dropping. I still don't know why. That's just beyond my pay grade at this point to even understand why that would be the case. But a big thanks once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And a big shout out to Alex for throwing in a $10 super chat, along with Taps for also throwing in a 10 as well. And thank you both for that support. We also have a 10 from Kimberly Anderson, who said, I'm new here, and thank you for the unbiased, unfiltered, quick news, and we appreciate you.
And thank you so much for the support and enjoying the unbiased, unfiltered, quick news that we put out, because we try our best to make sure that it is pretty much instantaneous with our news coverage and what we are able to see. And so a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that has addressed that well. And we are on to the next one.
And we have a $10 super chat from R, who said, hey, Enforcers, great balanced reporting, and you guys are earning the gold standard on live news on the internet.
Hey, and thank you so much for saying that we are the gold standard. We try our best to be. I still think that we've got a little ways to go, but I thank you for the kind words on that. And I thank you for helping this channel to keep rolling, because folks like you make it a reality. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a $10 super chat from Blaze87B, who said, I just discovered the channel the other day, and I love what you guys are doing. And if you guys want a missile air defense expert, look up another channel here that he named in the super chat.
And I got to thank you for the support, and we will look into them. Sounds quite interesting. A big thanks once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 10 from Alex yet again. He said, your coverage helps me make informed stock purchases in the defense sector. Oh, Lord, careful of that. Careful. He said, I'm a realtor and trade stocks on the side.
I would never take this channel as any kind of stock advice ever. I do thank you for the high praise, though, but I would never take us for stock advice. I actually personally don't even touch the stock market. But I do thank you massively for the support and helping this channel to keep rolling, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this thing running. And so with that, a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 10 from Van Gerritsen, who said, Venimal says great job. And please explain markers on the map, plasterer.
And thank you for the support. And the markers on the map are color coded by day, showing the different times and the different events that happen. Generally, I try and keep the markers as simplified as possible, and generally, you're supposed to show some sort of a major event. The trumpet men are supposed to show major events that we've been able to hear about: explosions, government statements, something that was largely signaling a major event. The fire symbols are supposed to signify some sort of a explosion on the ground, or some sort of video or picture evidence or news speaking about an explosion or an impact on the ground. The little skulls here are supposed to be for anyone who ends up getting killed or any kind of casualty reports, and then so on and so forth. But generally, the main markers that we use are aircraft markers for anything airborne. So if it's a missile or a plane or anything along those lines, they get the aircraft marker here. But they're also color coded by day. So Sunday is red, Saturday is yellow, Friday is olive, and Thursday is green. And then today, when we actually get around to coloring this thing, it will be darker blue today. Then tomorrow it'll be gray, and then on the next day after that, which will be Wednesday, it'll be maroon, and then the map resets. So that's generally the best explanation I can give to the map. But generally, all the markers are just cataloging and showing any video or picture evidence or government statements that we were able to get over the course of that one day on what was going on in any given area. So I hope that does address that the best we can. A big thanks to you once again for the support and asking about the map. And also, this map is custom made here on the Enforcer channel. You won't find it anywhere else. So if you want to have access to this map, click on the link in the description below, and you'll be able to come straight to the map for day 1216 and be able to look at every single marker that we've had for the entire week so far on this one map. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. A big thanks to you once again. And we are on to the next one. Also, the Kyle OG said, will there be a stream tonight as well? Absolutely not. We have to eventually get a break because we've done a stream today, we are going into this next streaming week without break for the large part. So we have been running shows now for, we will be running shows now for about 3 weeks straight without a break, 7 days a week at this point. So generally there will absolutely not be a late night stream unless if the world is on fire or the US just killed Khamenei. If one of those happens, we'll be live. But if something else doesn't happen that's just absolutely earth-shatteringly major, we will not be on stream tonight. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat's going to go to Forbidden Cat Belly, who puts in a 10 and said, is Iran closing off the Strait of Hormuz realistic? And other nations with the strait as coastline are not particularly friendly to it, and its proxies are in disarray, right? And also, does it have a huge navy?
I would have to say that them closing off the Strait of Hormuz is realistic because they can actually missile launch anti-sea mines into the area, at least from what we know. So they actually could mine the strait even if other countries wouldn't want it, and then they could try and protect that strait from being demined with anti-ship missiles, really firing at anyone who would attempt to demine it. So there is a way for them to actually demine. Well, actually not demine, but mine the Strait of Hormuz to stop any passages at the moment. So that is a high likelihood and a possibility at the moment. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. A big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 10 from Chad Bagley. And Chad said, I'm a nuclear engineer for the DoD at Norfolk Naval Shipyard, and for years we've been told what it means to be war ready, and I can see why now. And I love the channel. I've been following it for years.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support, Chad. And thank you for doing a very important job of this country, being a nuclear engineer for the Department of Defense at Norfolk Naval Shipyard. That actually is one hell of a naval shipyard. Like, you can actually look at it on satellite footage right here. I mean, just look at that. The Norfolk and Newport News naval shipyards, and then the actual Newport News shipbuilding yard over here. I believe this is in Newport News. Yeah, this is in Newport News right here. But I gotta thank you so much for the support and sharing that with us. That's actually incredibly interesting to hear. And we thank you for being here and enjoying this channel for years and supporting this channel and helping it to keep on running. And also, you can see the intermodal port, which is a very important feature of most modern ports these days, because it handles a lot of the non-aggregate or bulk traffic. And so, big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that has addressed that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here is going to go to Oni Pantera, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Oni, for that $10 support. They said, do y'all think we had the military satellites that tracked where those trucks went, but we're just acting like we don't know? And I just don't see how we didn't notice them moving the uranium right out.
Um, I would have to say a big thanks to you for the support. Really quickly though, Matthew, we're gonna have to hold that one because I actually was able to get us some breaking news in the meantime. We've actually been able to hear a statement from the President of the United States just 2 minutes ago. So really quickly, let me read this out to y'all. Iran has officially responded to our obliteration of their nuclear facilities with a very weak response, which we expected and have very effectively countered. There had been 14 missiles fired, 13 were knocked down, and one was set free because it was headed in a non-threatening direction. I am pleased to report that no Americans were harmed and hardly any damage was done. Most importantly, they've gotten it all out of their system, and there will hopefully be no further hate. I want to thank Iran for giving us early notice, which made it possible for no lives to be lost and nobody to be injured. Perhaps Iran can now proceed to peace and harmony in the region. I will enthusiastically encourage Israel to do the same. Thank you for attention to this matter, President of the United States.
That's a very confusing response. I'm not sure what to make of that.
I really do not know what to make of it because the Iranians have also vowed that they're going to be striking more in the region. And also, it's like this is completely overlooking the fact that the Iranians did just try and kill some U.S. soldiers. Like, they may have not, and they may have told you in advance, but they still tried. So
And also, we just bombed the hell out of all their like major nuclear sites too. So it's almost like pretending like that never happened. I'm not really sure. Is he trolling? I don't know. Like last time he was trolling, and I thought he was being serious. Maybe he's trolling. Maybe he's not. It's hard to tell.
I don't know. We'll see. But I have a feeling the Iranians are going to keep striking, most likely. From what I would know. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to FC Napes, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, FC Napes, for that support. He said, F-18 aircrew here and transferred from my squadron on Chucky V3 3 weeks before they got sent to CENTCOM. And shout out to my 200 closest friends currently on the front. I wish I was there with you boys.
And dang, big shout out to you, FC Napes, and hopefully that entire crew of folks is out there doing well, I'd have to say. But a big thanks to you for the support and sharing that with us, and very interesting to hear that you unfortunately didn't get to go with them, but hopefully they're all safe and well out there. And a big shout out to all of those folks out there for helping the Armed Forces of the Republic to continue to protect its interests inside of the Middle East. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And I'll be honest with y'all, folks, I think that the president was trolling in that statement right there because there's no way in hell that a missile attack can ever be viewed as getting towards peace and harmony. So I think that might actually be some sort of trolling. It's really hard to tell because any sort of sarcasm is unreadable in written form. And so it looks like that may have actually been trolling, I believe. But we'll see in the coming days whether there was real belief and intent behind that statement or whether that was actually just some sort of a trolling attempt on the Iranians again. But with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, I think we forgot to answer Oni's question, by the way,
Okay.
that $10 super chat. I think we moved past it. So back to Oni's super chat here. Also, sorry about that. They said, do y'all think we had military satellites that tracked where those trucks went, but we were just acting like we didn't know? And I just don't see how they moved all that uranium out without us noticing.
I would agree. I don't really know how they moved the uranium out without us noticing. I feel like we would have, but still at the same time, maybe it slipped through the cracks somehow, some way. I'm just not entirely sure, but still a little interesting, I will have to admit. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to SMA, who puts in a 10. Who said, do you think the Chinese will start a proxy war in Iran to distract the West from Taiwan, like the modern-day Vietnam?
I would doubt it. I don't think there's going to be anything along those lines. What we see right now is what we're getting, and I don't really think the United States will necessarily be distracted from Taiwan because that's within Indo-PACOM's area of responsibility, and they keep a laser-like focus on any developing situations with Taiwan. So a big thanks to you once again for support. Hope that does address that well, and we're on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to Jono Plays, who puts in a 10. And Jono said, I started watching recently, and the content is factual and accurate. It gives more detail than other sources, and much more timely with facts on the ground. And thank you so much for this programming.
And thank you so much for enjoying it and supporting it, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible and keep it running. So a huge thanks to you so much once again, and thank you for enjoying our programming. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Dark Cicero 96. And they said, sending support from Scotland. And what do you think the chances that the British will back up our American brothers?
I would say the chances of the British backing us up is pretty decent. The British usually back us up everywhere we go. We're generally great friends with them. And so I think that there will be a decent chance that they'll most likely back us up at the moment. But a big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that well. And also, I saw someone ask a question, and this one was interesting. I'm going to take a little bit of a moment to address it because someone asked, DP asked, when we're going to be covering the Ukraine war. And we covered that last night, just to let you know, and we covered it about as much as we could, actually showing what was going on there. But I want to just make it a little bit clear that today, U.S. soldiers came under attack in the Middle East. The Iranians fired at them. That is going to take precedent over the Ukrainians when that happens. Like, the Ukrainians are taking a back seat at that point when U.S. forces or U.S. citizens come under attack. This channel is a world news channel that focuses on pro-American and pro-Western interests, and there's nothing really that is of primary concern to this channel that would trump the fact that U.S. service members came under attack today. So I thank you for caring about the Ukraine war, and I think that that war is, of course, pertinent to American and Western interests, but if you expect me to completely overlook the fact that U.S. soldiers were just attacked in the Middle East to go talk about day 1216 of the war in Ukraine, then you would be sorely mistaken. That would not be happening. I do thank you, though, for the concern about that, but that also is a little bit disrespectful to the American soldiers of my country that just came under attack inside of the Middle East that we were trying to talk about right now. But with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, by the way, the U.S. president has issued another tweet. He said, "Congratulations, world. It's time for peace." I mean, I don't understand. I mean, the world is basically at war right now, essentially. So, there's no congratulations to really give here. The statement seems a little bit tone deaf, in my opinion. Not trying to get into politics. I'm just simply looking at the statement on its face value. Currently, Ukraine's still fighting Russia. That's a major war happening. Also, we have China. They're over there threatening Taiwan still. The Middle East is a shit show right now, and it's not showing any signs of ending. No congratulations is really in order. Nothing's ended, and also peace appears to be a fleeting topic these days. So, I'm not sure what to make. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say I don't know what that statement is. A little bit interesting. I don't really know what to make of it, to be entirely honest. I don't even really know what to comment, really. So we're just going to move on to the next one. Also, folks, the reason why I answer the question, because I see some people saying, "Oh, see, America doesn't care about Ukraine anymore." America, I'm just gonna make it clear from my perspective as an American. When American soldiers are coming under attack in the Middle East, Ukraine is taking a backseat for that day. We cover world news every day. We cover Ukraine every day. We covered it last night. There was plenty enough news, just to make this a little bit clear, to not cover Ukraine last night, but because we are a world news channel, we went out of our way to make sure that we included in Ukraine and made the news segment about 30 minutes longer than it had to have been, overtime, to make sure to include it. But when something like this happens today, that is a breaking news topic that we are going live on immediately to cover, because there are currently U.S. forces under attack, or that were under attack in the region, that's taking precedent over everything. Like, I thank everyone for their attention and care, but at the same time, folks, this is a pro-American, pro-Western news channel. If American forces are under attack, that's generally taking priority over everything, at least for the moment. Like if people don't like that, I'm sorry, but at the same time,
This
I'm
is
not.
one person, man.
Well, yeah, but at the same time, some people wanted to act like that was uncalled for, that we're acting like we're abandoning Ukraine because I'm talking about the United States for a day because we're Americans after all. So with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here is going to be going to Todd Koenig, who puts in a 10, and he said, "Do the trucks at Fordo line up with the CCP cargo planes arriving?"
I would say, yeah, kind of. It's a little bit hard to tell because we really don't know exactly what the Chinese aircraft were doing inside of Iran, so it's a little bit hard to tell. But I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat goes to Curry Goats, who puts in a 10. And they said Western media avoided the discussion on Iran allegedly having killed a head of Mossad in Israeli hospital bunker. And is it true that David Barnea died in the strike? And why should U.S. soldiers die for Israel?
I don't believe he died in any strike. I haven't heard of any Israeli officials getting killed in any strikes so far at all, at least from the moment. And I'd also say that the U.S. isn't getting dragged into Israel's war. We're getting dragged into denuclearizing Iran, which is something we have to do because they're in violation of non-proliferation treaties that we are currently signing members of that state that the Iranians cannot have a nuclear weapon. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. Big thanks to you once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to Pagetto 666, who puts in a 7, and also Christian E. Haldorson for putting in a 6 as well. And thank you both very much for that support. We also have a 5 from Vulture 1066, who said, hello, enforcers, from a lurker, and keep up the good work, and take one from the chat.
And a big thanks to you for the support, Vulture 1066, and thank you so much for being one of our American lurkers. And we will make sure to take one from the chat. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so our live chat question goes to Live Animal, who said, why is the oil price even declining? Please explain.
I don't even know. Like, I can't even explain. Like, that's beyond my pay grade, so I'd have to declare ignorance on that one, unfortunately. But Matthew, do you have any answers?
I have no answers on that, to be honest with you. It makes no sense. And the people that claim to have an answer for why it's happening, I guess good on them, because you know I'm not the most bright person in the world, but at the same time, though, I have basic understandings of how economics works, and the price should have gone up. Like, there was really no scenario where the price should have gone tremendously down, not just down, but also plummeted down. That shouldn't have happened. So, just to chalk that up to another weird occurrence in 2025.
I would have to agree. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to a Happy Image, who puts in a 5 and said Qatar are the second biggest terrorist supporters other than Iran, in their opinion.
Well, that's actually a little bit difficult to answer because they don't support any terrorists, but they will allow like the leaders of Hamas to live inside of Qatar in penthouses in Doha. So it's kind of a half and half thing, because at the same time, they supported terrorist forces just almost as much as Iran. Why in the world are U.S. bases allowed to be inside of their country, and why are they a host state for U.S. forces? It's a really weird situation that Qatar is in. They practically almost exist as a free state, if you want to call them that, within the Middle East. But I wouldn't really call them supporters of terrorism. I think that would be going a little bit far, at least in my opinion. But a big thanks to you once again for support. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Rob C, who puts in a 5. He said, Iran trying to bully the rest of the Arab nations outright. And what's your opinion, host and community? And yeah, I would say they're definitely bullying the Arab nations. Qatar, which is generally seen as one of the, I guess you could say, slightly friendly countries or more friendly countries to Iran in some way or another, was the one that was just attacked with missiles. So Iran has no bounds at this point. Like, they're willing to go after anybody they want to, the moment they deem that somebody's not totally doing exactly what they want them to do. So, Iran's just out of control. We've been saying that. And that's the whole reason we said they need to go take the nukes out, because Iran is that out of control and that crazy that if they're that loose and wild with their missiles, then they definitely shouldn't have a nuke. So I would agree. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to agree. They're pretty much making the argument at this point as to why we had to go in and try and forcefully denuclearize them at this point. Because they got a nuke. Imagine the same kind of volatility that they have right now, but with a nuclear weapon. That would be a disaster for everyone in the region and around the world. That's a terrible idea for them to have one. And so I'd have to thank you for the support and help with this channel to keep running. And I generally agree that the Iranians are pretty much trying to act as a bully in the Middle East and just try and beat everyone into line to where they can do whatever they want. We're not going to stand for that. And so a big thanks to you once again, and we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Jack Daniels, who puts in a 5. He said, tomorrow morning, I'm sure we'll get the news that the Ayatollah was killed in an airstrike.
Maybe. I'm not going to say this out of the question, but maybe it will happen, actually. And so a big thanks to you once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and this one goes to Marodin Garon, who says, Operation FAFO begins.
And I'd have to agree. It appears that it might be beginning, hopefully, here soon. Hopefully we'll see that the U.S. just doesn't do anything, because the Iranians have made it clear they're going to be continuing to attack well into the future. And so big thanks to you once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Dariush, who puts in a 5 and said, Iranians wants regime change, and we love Israel.
And I got to thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep running. And I would have to say that I do believe that the Iranians probably want a regime change at this point. So big thanks once again, and we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Nightmare Before Christmas, who put in a 5 and said oil is probably dropping because of the fear that you won't be able to pick up the oil you paid for, I believe, in LSA.
That might actually be the reason why. That could be a reason. We can see that a lot of Middle Eastern oil purchase orders are being canceled, possibly. But then again, that would actually start to cause these people to just go fill out purchase orders elsewhere, and then the price would remain stable. Because it's not like if they're canceling their purchase orders, they're just not buying anything anywhere. Oil is a commodity that has to be purchased practically on a daily basis and refined into a usable fuel product every day as well. So it's just a little bit bizarre to see. I really don't know what the good explanation to it could be still, but that's probably a better one than we have at all at this point. So a big thanks to you once again. I hope that does address that well, and we're on to the next one.
All right, and this one goes to Bazinga, who puts in a 5. And he said, unless governments have gotten involved to drop the price of oil in order to hit Russia and Iran even harder.
We haven't heard of any government interference, at least on an official level at this point, that would lead to a price drop in oil like that. But it is sure as hell interesting, that I will admit, and it possibly does suggest there may be some kind of government involvement. But a big thanks once again for the support. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and this one goes to Smarzig, who puts in the 5, who said, I remember the gasoline went to 99 cents for quite a while during the Iraq War.
I do thank you for the support, and I wasn't alive during that period in time, but I do thank you for sharing that and supporting this channel and helping us to keep it running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Kuro Tak, who puts in a 5 and said companies are betting on a long occupation, meaning American occupation of oil resources, and that would bring a surplus of oil dropping prices anyway.
And I thank you for the support. Maybe they are. I can't really speak for the markets, but I do thank you for the support and sharing that information with us. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to the Mindak Viking, who puts in a 5 and said, we hit hard, they missed, and we have an opportunity to maintain our readiness and posture, but say, now that you've had your fit, are you ready to talk?
I generally don't really believe in that kind of a thing. Like, that's probably what we're doing, maybe. I generally don't believe in that, though, because it's like, if the Pearl Harbor attack failed, would the U.S. back then go gone, okay, Japan, did you learn your lesson now? Do you feel better? Like, it's like, we're not dealing with like a domestic relationship issue here where, like your boyfriend or girlfriend throws a fit and like throws like some clothes at you or something, and then you go, okay, do you feel better now? Like, we're not working on that. This is a country that just tried to kill service members, possibly. So I generally say I still would consider this to be a heinous act by the Iranians, and honestly, I think that we shouldn't have even given them the leeway to think that they could have done something like this to either quote unquote get out anger or to save face or whatever anyone wants to call it. They shouldn't have done this at all, in my opinion. And so with that, a big thanks to you once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Trezzy, who puts in a 5. And Trezzy says, hello, and what's the probability of getting a face reveal at 500,000 subs?
Oh, we've already done a face reveal at 100,000 subs. We just don't show our face a lot here on the channel. Like, we're not AI or bots or machines or anything like that. We sound kind of robotic, maybe. I don't know. But we actually are people. And we actually have done face reveals in the past. Our YouTube shorts show us in the flesh, or at least me a good bit in the flesh. And then also we've done Christmas addresses for 2022 and 2023 that also show our faces as well. And then we also did a face reveal at 100,000 subscribers, so that also shows her face too. So we've actually done a face reveal way back in the past. But a big thanks to you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Penn, who puts in a 5 and said, if Iran nukes Israel, what happens in the rest of the world? And does everyone just get sent home from work to be with loved ones in case?
I don't really know. I don't know what the global response would be. It could be different country to country, but I have a feeling that at least on a diplomatic level, if the Iranians nuked Israel, the Iranians might end up seeing the end of their country at least soon. So a big thanks to you once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Timothy Miller, who puts in a 5. He said, I wouldn't trust Russia if they told me rain was wet. I'd go outside and verify it.
I would too. I don't trust the Russians for squat. They lie about practically everything. So a big thanks to you once again. Hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Yannick, who puts in a 5 and said, awesome coverage, guys. And I'm watching you every day from the 50th parallel in the Canadian bush. And thanks to Starlink.
And a big thanks to you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And great to hear that you're watching us all the way in the bush from Starlink. A big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And we're on to the next one.
And we have a 5 from Higgs. And he said, I am in Qatar, and I saw them come in, and I saw one get through, but the rest were intercepted by the Patriot. And I can give you the videos if you want.
Well, I thank you so much for the support, and if you do want to give us those videos, you can probably send those over to us on Twitter. But a big thanks to you once again for support and being one of our Qatari viewers, and if you would like to send that footage to us, please feel free. We would like to take a look at it. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 5 from Terrence Custer, who said, great hearing news every day, but you guys need downtime. And here's for some R&R and LSA.
Hey, and thank you so much for the R&R fund. We really do at this point, but we've actually ended up pretty much clearing out our schedule to be ready for whatever may be happening here over the next few weeks, possibly. So a big thanks to you once again. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Tim W. puts in a 5. And he said, I forgot to mention on the earlier chat, y'all are great at, and I've been here for almost the last 2 years on one of your active duty days.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support. And thank you for being here for so long and being here, even on one of your active duty days. I got to thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on rolling, Tim W. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Saint Sir Nicholas, who puts in a 5 and said, thank you for the work, you're an inspiration. And do you have any tips on how to grow the YouTube?
I would say the best thing to do to grow a YouTube is to learn how to speak incredibly well. That's really one of the big things. And the second thing is to just work at it as a full-time job. If you work at YouTube as a full-time job and you end up actually learning and evolving, you will most likely end up succeeding. Some people don't do that. Some people can't talk well, and they also don't really know how to evolve or adapt to do better, and then they fail. But generally, if you just talk incredibly well, like you can generally keep a string of words going, and it sounds like it makes a decent amount of sense. It doesn't have to make perfect sense every time. It just has to make a decent amount of sense. And then if you can also go and create decent thumbnails and also figure out how to actually market your stuff, and then people come in and they listen to you and you talk incredibly well and you're interesting sounding, then folks usually stick around. That's probably the best recommendation that I can give. But a big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a 5 from the average juice box, who said, has China made any statements in terms of supporting the Iranian military?
I haven't actually heard any statements from the Chinese Foreign Ministry so far. We're still waiting for any at all, to be entirely honest. And so a big thanks to you once again. I hope that does address that well. And we're on to the next one.
And up next, a big shout out to Paul Johnson for throwing in a 5, and also a big shout out to Turje Anton Gordmundsson for putting in a 5 as well. And we appreciate you both very much. We also have a 5 from Chad Kroger, who said, I just started watching you guys through this conflict, and you guys are basically a civilian situation room. I like it, and keep it up.
And a big thanks to you for the support, and thank you for saying that. We've actually had a lot of people come in and say really kind things about the show, that we do it better than most debriefs in the military, or folks who have been in those sorts of things. They've said a lot of kind words, and I got to thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because folks like you do make this thing possible and help us to keep it running. So a big thanks to you once again, and we are on to the next one.
Yes, indeed. Also, by the way, I do want to point this out real quick, not because I'm trying to make a political point. I want to make that perfectly clear off the bat. I personally am apolitical. I don't really adhere to any political party. That's just my personal life. So I really don't have a dog in the fight. I just go with when the presidential election comes around, I vote for whoever fits the bill at the time. So that's just to sort of make things clear for me. But Enforcer, pull up our Twitter real quick. I want to show you a tweet that was tweeted on the 21st of June, which was 2 days ago, by the United States president. This was tweeted 2 days ago. It says, any retaliation by Iran against the United States of America will be met with force far greater than what was witnessed tonight, which was right after the bombing on the nuclear sites, and said, thank you, signed the United States president. These type of statements right here, we can't keep doing that. Like when it comes to making these false promises and false commitments, this type of stuff right here diminishes the United States, I guess you could say, posturing factor. People don't take us seriously when we say stuff like this, and then we turn around the next day and say congratulations for peace after they strike us. That's just not a good precedent to set. I just had to mention that real quick because I don't want the record to be murky on this. It was said 2 days ago that retaliation would be way greater than what we did to the nuclear sites if Iran retaliated. We did not do that, and that commitment was broken.
Yeah, also, it makes it really hard for us to analyze things here on the channel, because we would just work off of statements at face value. We always have to, because that's all we can do. So when the president says this 2 days ago, that any retaliation will be met with a stronger response in force than what was seen that night, and then we get hit, and then we go, yippee, it's peace, then, like, our analysis just goes out of the window. That was what the president said. That's why we were assuming that there would be a strong U.S. response, and now it appears that there may not be a strong U.S. response or any U.S. response to the current attack at all, and any U.S. response might be coming a day or two, or a week or several weeks down the pipe after the Iranians attack us several more times. It's a little bit interesting, though, and I'd have to agree with Matthew. It doesn't set a good example of the U.S.'s posturing in foreign policy, because we actually do not really have a posturing in foreign policy. We just it kind of seems like we just do sporadic things firing off, here and there. And I can see some people trying to explain it away. Like I just got to be a little bit straight up here, folks. We're not trying to be political here, but when you take things at face value, which you have to for analysis purposes and news coverage purposes, like, at least on our end, we're saying at the beginning of the show, there has to be a U.S. response. There has to be a major one, because the president said that several days ago, that if this happened, there was going to be blood. And then it happens, and then now there's a completely different response. And so then our analysis is thrown out the window for that reason. It doesn't look like it had any weight, because we were working off of the literal president's own words from several days ago. And then we just see a totally different thing done today. And it also makes it look like we're wishy-washy, and we'll say very strongly worded statements. And then when something happens, then it makes us look weak when we give a statement like, yippee, it's time for peace. That just doesn't really make all too much sense, just putting that out there. So if you don't like that, unfortunate. But we look at things for face value. And once again, I'm not really a political person and don't really have a dog in the fight in the political game. So with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, I want to say that one more thing as well. If any president had done this, I'd be saying the same thing. It's not because it's this one particular guy that I'm saying this. There have been prior presidents in the past that I've studied their decision making as well that have done that. Not quite to this degree, though, but it has happened before. It's not the first time it's ever happened. But anytime this is ever done, and no matter who does it, it does diminish the United States' ability to have deterrence, because once again, people start taking our words at less face value than they did previously, and then they start testing more boundaries, and that causes more escalation. So I'm just making a general observation. It's not a comment on the guy particularly. I have a different opinion on a different front about all that, but we don't get into it on this channel because we don't cover politics. But just to make that clear, some people are still going to take it political anyway. I can't help that. But I've given the disclaimer just for the record. But anyways, jumping into our next one here, this one goes to Please, who puts in a 5. They said it did show up on flight radar about 5 minutes ago, the F-15, and the transponder would show on startup.
And I thank you for the support. And we apparently did not get to catch that one. We did catch a Eurofighter in Qatar for a little while, but that was about it. But a big thanks to you once again, and we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Tristan Ensley, who puts in a 5. He said the RAF has a jet in the air northwest of Israel. Currently, RRR 9960X is the code on flight radar. And keep up the great work, guys.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support, and thank you for sharing that with us. That's very interesting to hear. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we have a $5 super chat from Yor, who says 4010, a Global Hawk has spotted on flight radar.
And I get to thank you for the support and also sharing that with us as well. A lot of people have been telling us that all kinds of aircraft have been showing up on flight radar. Sadly, the transponders almost always turn off by the time we get around to looking at them. But a big thanks once again, and we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Frog World YouTube, who puts in a 5. And they said, I'm a simple frog, but when the LSA says jump, I jump. And thank you for the persistent coverage, and God bless.
And a big thanks to you for being a simple frog. And I thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running and enjoying the coverage. And so a big thanks to you once again, and we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Wyatt Logan, who put in 5. Excuse me, goodness. And he said, I remember when the LSA got excited over the first Ukraine drone dropped grenade and second open tank hatch. And we've come a long way, you guys, and you're awesome. And thank you for the streams.
I got to thank you so much for appreciating how far we've come. We've come an incredibly long way, an insanely long way, as a matter of fact. And I got to thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible and keep it running. So a massive thanks to you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Voodoo Blue, who puts in a 5 and said, what are the odds that Iran has retained a certain quantity of uranium-235 and can put it on top of a ballistic missile to create a dirty bomb attack?
The chances are high because there's about 400 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium that's missing right now. It's not weapons grade, but it certainly could be used to create a dirty bomb. So the risks of that are actually a little bit considerable at the moment because we don't know where that uranium ended up. So a big thanks to you once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one here goes to Axel K9 Bradley, who puts in a 9. He said, do y'all think World War III is coming and or nukes? Because I'm a bit worried.
I don't think that World War III or nukes are coming for now. I think this regional conflict will remain entirely contained and not spread out to be anything larger than what it is currently. So a big thanks once again. I hope that does address that well. And we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Kelly S., who puts in a 4. And thank you, Kelly, as well, for that $4 support. We also have a 3 from Gary Tour, who said, what do you think about the British F-35 stuck in India?
I would have to say that that's rather unfortunate. I wouldn't know about that situation off the top of my head, though, unfortunately. But a big thanks once again, and we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to LSA Sergeant Figment, who puts in a 2 and says, LSA, hit the like button. That's an order.
And thank you for the support. And of course, hit the like button, folks. That is an order from none other than LSA Sergeant Figment, a channel legend and an old guard. And we've gotten 14,000 likes on this stream so far, which is absolutely impressive. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Too High to Die, who puts in a 2 and says, Israel wants that 1v10.
And I would say, let's see. Maybe they do. Maybe Iran does want that 1v10 possibly. So a big thanks to you once again. And we're on to the next one.
All right. Also, by the way, I'm going to refrain from any more like opinion comments on this. I'm just going to report the news because some people just cannot handle anything gets even remotely close to being slightly political. So I'm going to stay away from it just to keep the news coverage neutral. But let's see. So according to Brock Ravid, a very credible source for sure. He said a White House official told him that the U.S. president's new goal is to end the war. And he's going to make it clear to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, we want a deal and we don't want any more war. We need to stop this war. Stop it now, said the official. So, that's what it is. But anyways, moving on to our next one here. This one goes to Terry, who puts in a 2. He said, the enforcer is RAF base okay and USA work with RAF.
From what we know, all RAF bases in the area are perfectly all right. So it seems as though the Royal Air Force is A-okay, at least within the region at the moment. And so a big thanks to you once again. I hope that does address that well. And we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to FL Camera, who puts in a 2. And thank you, FL Camera, for that support. We also have a 2 from Douglas L. Hemingway, who said, is this a justification for a declaration?
I would certainly say so. I would think it would have been. But it appears that the president thinks otherwise, at least for the moment, if we're to take his statements at face value, which we have to. So a big thanks once again, and we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Sir St. Nicholas once again. He said, any tips for getting big on YouTube like you pros and things? And he wants those YouTube tips, I'm telling you. Honestly, here's my tip. Whatever you do on YouTube, don't do it because you're starting a YouTube channel. Do it because you love something that you're already doing. That's how you have a successful channel. If you do like modeling RC planes and you want to film how you do that, you'll probably have a successful channel if you're really passionate about the RC planes. If you're passionate about geopolitics, you'll probably have a successful geopolitical channel. Don't go on YouTube saying, I'm creating a YouTube channel because I want to have a huge channel. That's only worked for maybe a handful of people. Mr. Beast was one of them. He went into it knowing that he wanted to build a huge YouTube channel. So he literally tried everything under the sun possible to try to find a way to make it succeed. Not because he was necessarily passionate about one thing, but because he was trying to make a business out of it. That rarely ever succeeds. Mr. Beast is a rare outlier in that equation. So usually if you're passionate about one thing, you can usually make it happen if you just happen to film it and put it on YouTube and share your passion with others. You'll find that sometimes even a small niche can grow to be a big one, depending on what you're doing. But that's my advice.
That pretty much is the truthful advice because back in the day, this channel actually did start off publishing its very first video as an actual video about world news. Just to show y'all really quickly, it's a little interesting here. It actually did publish 2 videos, this one here and this one here. Both of these are actually public right now. We made them public because they're technically the first videos ever on the channel. And both of them were about ongoing world events at the time that were happening in the latter part of 2021. The collapse of Afghanistan and also the protests that were going on in Hong Kong. Were the videos good by my definition? No, not really. were the start of the channel? Yes, because I wanted to cover this even back when we first started. Then that didn't really do too well, at least to me back in the day, although it actually did pretty damn good for only having 7 subscribers. Each one got about 300 to 1,000 views, so I was actually pretty happy with that. But beyond that, I then changed it into being a gaming channel, which I absolutely despised. I absolutely hated doing gaming content because that's not what I wanted to do YouTube for. I wanted to do it to talk about news and developments because I've always been interested in that. So when the Ukraine war started, I went back to doing it, and I was like, I don't really care because I absolutely hate doing gaming. I want to do news. I'm going to do news whether I succeed or not. And then it blew up, actually, and then by about 40,000 subscribers or so, about a month in, Matthew then joined the channel, and we've been running it ever since together. But that's generally the main thing, is to follow your passion and do something that you actually care about. You can learn how to refine it, like I was saying earlier, like work really hard at it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, or for better yet, just really learn how to talk well and make yourself sound very eloquent and informed. You know, make sure that you actually have well-researched information on whatever you're talking about, because then you can pretty much make your way to success if you actually have passion for what you're doing, and it really does show in every way. And so a big thanks to you for the support. I hope that does answer that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 2 from Alfredo. He said, what is the possibility of the Strait of Hormuz closing? Is it decreasing?
I'm not entirely sure at the moment. The picture is a little bit unclear, so I'm going to have to say that I'm unknown or uncertain at the moment on that answer. So, big thanks to you once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Captain Obvious, who said it's shaped like a giant crayon to attract Marines. That was in his words. I didn't say that. That was in the Super Chat's words.
Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, you know, I actually have a lot of Marine friends. They really embrace the crayon jokes. So maybe that's true. I don't know. Some people are really touchy though. Like all the Marines I personally know, the ones who are currently serving, the ones who are veterans. Hell, they get a laugh out of crayon jokes every time. But then there will be someone here who claims that they're a Marine or may actually be a Marine, and they're gonna act like they're very offended by the crayon joke. But me personally, every time I've told it to someone, they always find it funny. So I thank you for the support and the funny joke there, and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to War Thunder, who puts in a 2. And he said, so the Russians are basically the Klingons.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that might as well be. I guess that would be the good way of looking at it. I think the Klingons actually were based on the Soviets in Star Trek, if I remember correctly, at least off of Gene Roddenberry's original statements. I think they actually were modeled off of the Russian, the Soviet Union. So, yeah, I think so. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to Drew, who puts in a 2. And he said, can you cover the Greek Orthodox Church in Syria?
I actually would not know enough about the Greek Orthodox Church in Syria to speak about it in great detail, so I generally have to declare ignorance on it. I could speak about the Maronites in general in Syria and Lebanon, but I can't really speak to great depth or volume on specific Orthodox churches of the Greek sect of the Orthodox faith inside of Syria. I don't have enough intelligence or not enough intelligence, not enough knowledge to really speak about that at a great depth, so I would have to declare ignorance on that, but I do thank you for support and helping this channel to keep running. Also, by the way, I got to explain this because some people are like, crayons are rude, so I'll explain. So the Marines are generally joked about as being like the running joke is that Marines are not really the sharpest tools in the shed, or something along those lines. I don't really know where the hell the whole crayon eating thing came from, but apparently the joke is that Marines eat crayons. A lot of Marines actually embrace that joke and call themselves crayon eaters. Other people joke about them and ask them what color of crayon is their favorite flavor. But generally, the crayon eating joke is a really big joke about the Marine Corps, kind of like how with the Air Force, a lot of people will call them the Chair Force, or usually you'll find those books about, like, here's what the Army does, and then it's like a book filled of information, and it's like, this is what the Air Force does, and then the book's literally just a whole bunch of empty pages. There's kind of like a joke about every branch out there, but the big one for the Marines is the crayon eating. Like, for some reason, that's like the big joke about the Marines.
Yeah, I actually knew an individual in high school that was a Marine and had come back. He actually brought like a mini pack of Crayolas and that was chewing on the red ones. Like no joke. Like actually, I think he was doing it obviously as a joke, but he was chewing on the crayon for real. He was spitting them out like he was like doing like dip or something, but he was actually like chewing on the crayons. I was like, can you tell me how that tastes? Like, I'm kind of curious. Like, how does that taste? He's like, kind of waxy. I was like, oh, yeah, okay, that figures. But I don't know why the crayon joke exists. I don't even really understand the
I
crayon
really
joke,
don't
but
get it
I'm like, it's
either.
just been a thing.
I really don't get it either, but generally, like whenever I'm talking to any Marine, like I'll be chit chatting with them, and then they'll say something, and then they'll I joke about it at this point because they're fine with that. I'll be, oh, shut the hell up, you crayon eater, and then they're, hey, my favorite color is red, thank you, and it generally is just considered to be a funny thing. Like, it's not like, I don't know how people can take offense to it because it's really a harmless joke, and everyone I've ever run into that's been a Marine has been perfectly fine with the jokes. But some people are really touchy, and then a lot of people want to try and turn something into something else. Like you say, oh, the like you even read a super chat like, oh, the Marines eat crayons, and then someone's going to say something out there, the enforcer hates the Marine Corps, and then it turns into this whole thing when it was just a simple joke. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. Also, by the way, disclaimer: do not eat crayons. Please do not.
Yeah.
We're not telling you to eat crayons. Like, just as a disclaimer, because someone's gonna be like, "Oh, they're telling me to eat crayons." No, I'm just telling you about a story about someone else that did it. I didn't tell them to eat crayons. You shouldn't eat crayons. Crayons are not edible. But anyways, jumping on to our next one here. This one goes to Tim Morgan, who puts in 2 and says, "Just because."
Hey, and thank you so much for support, just because. And we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Hexen Work, who puts in a 2 and says, "Keep grinding, bruh."
And we will. We are on the grind every day. Honestly, we kind of wanted to have a break day today, but the news was massive, so we had to get on air. But a big thanks once again, and we are on to the next one.
All right. And our next one goes to Hero of Canton, who put in a 2. And they said, a reminder, B2's first flight was in 1989.
And yes, that is true. That is well, actually, I think it was introduced into service in 1989. I think its first flight was in 81, if I'm correct. I'm wrong. Actually, you were correct. It was 1989. Yeah, there we go. 1989. I think the F-117 is the one I was getting confused with, and it was 1981. Let me check. Yeah, first flight was 1981. So I got confused with the F-117 and the B-2. But a big thanks to you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Blinder, who puts in a 2. And thank you, Blinder, as well. We also had a 2 from Uncovered Cube 7, who said LSA and USA. And thank you very much, Uncovered Cube, and I do agree. Also, we had a 2 from Mustard Skaven, who said, thank you both for what you're doing.
And thank you for enjoying what we do, and thank you for supporting it and helping this channel to keep running. And we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Anglerfish, who puts in a 2 as well, and says ATC shows 14 fighter jets in Gulf of America.
Interesting. Thank you for sharing that information about what's going on down in the Gulf of Mexico. And a big thanks to you once again, and we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Matthew Hink, who puts in a 2. And thank you, Matthew Hink, as well for that support. And guess what, folks? That's actually the end of our Super Chat questions. And we are now moving on to our live chats proper. And believe it or not, we only have one live chat question left in the spreadsheet. We've gotten all of them after people requested live chats and the Super Chats. We've gone through all the ones we had except for exactly one. So very interesting to see. But Enforcer, what say you?
And with that, we are going to be on to the final question of the night. And so who is like the last person to throw in the lucky last question of the night?
And it is still the day. But this one goes to Danny Trujillo, who said, do you think orders are canceling, therefore price dropping due to countries thinking they won't be able to get the oil through the strait?
Possibly so. I think that might be the case, at least at the moment, but I'm not entirely sure. I'm not really an expert on why the prices are dropping or what the reason for that would even be, and it seems like a lot of people are scrambling to even find a plausible answer as to why that is happening right now. So that could be the case, but I cannot guarantee with certainty because I certainly wouldn't even have enough knowledge on my own to even answer whether that would be right or not. But a big thanks to you once again for asking a great question. And with that, we have actually reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank you all so much once again for watching and enjoying this news right now. It was not the greatest news. Don't really like to hear about U.S. Armed Forces being under attack, but we hope we were able to get you all as much information and details as we could at the moment about what was going on, at least in that area. If y'all have enjoyed, please make sure to subscribe. We cover news like this every single day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, whenever it happens. And we'll go live right when a major event is coming down. And so a massive thanks to all of you so much once again for watching, and we will see you all in the next one. Good night. Well, actually, it's still the middle of the day. I keep on forgetting about that. So with that, we will see you all around. Have a great afternoon if you're here in America, and if you're from around the rest of the world, have a great whatever, I suppose. But with that, see you all around, and of course, long live the Lee Spring Army, and the Lee Spring Army will never die.
And with that, folks, thank you all for joining us once again today. And hopefully there's no more breaking news this evening, because this is our only live stream for the day. So hopefully there's not any more breaking news. But if there is, you can follow it on our Twitter page. And I will be reposting and posting about it live over there, as I always do, 24/7. So be sure to check out our Twitter page. Our handle is @It'sTheEnforcer. And we're now up to 40,000 followers on the Twitter page, which I've been growing the Twitter for a long, long time. And the Enforcer also retweets as well on there. And it's crazy. 40,000 followers. It is like hard as hell to get followers on Twitter, and 40,000 is a whopping crazy number. So I'm very thankful for everybody following the Twitter page, because I've been working hard on that thing for years now, and I'm glad to see it's finally making some progress. So with that, folks, we'll see you all tomorrow on the Short War video and the nightly War News stream as well. And thank you all for joining us once again, and all 650,000 people that were here on this stream even. And we will see you all in the next one. And with that, bye-bye for now.